Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is October the 30th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1443 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman civil calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American court, universal court action. We are the sovereign living justices in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredis. I am sovereign living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminutio nolo. My free chosen sovereign appellation is Light Tajiri Bay. Both are in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredis. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign, ancient empire state for Morocco. We are the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are ancient Washington District for Columbia. We are the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Article 3 Universal Moorish American Consular Court, among many other appellations. Today, we are executing and exercising the law by our sovereign capacity, which is the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign, ancient, Article 3, living United States District for Columbia Court, and we are the sovereign fiduciaries, secured creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, possessors, and beneficiaries in this cause for action. We are peace, we are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby accept our sovereign ascension, issue a universal creditor's bill for possession and against all judgment debtors, and exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. Islam, our statement for today is that we will never fall again. We will never fall again. Islam. Justice Akil, did you want to go ahead and ask the question that you had? Islam. And let me go ahead and...
There you go.
Okay, Islam.
I got a presentment in the mail today, and it basically was an offer instead of a bill. Like, I got to pay. They try to recontract with me. It's a loan processing department, and then it says it's not a check, but they offer me a certain amount. So I'm wondering, is it? And then they have a reservation code and all this other stuff. And I was wondering, can we answer this?
So
I can recreate that, can I?
you can. So state again what it was.
Okay, it's from the loan processing department, and they have a reservation code. And they have a telephone number and where you can go apply.
Yeah.
Online, but
yes.
They also have here. It looks exactly like it's a check.
Nobody can hear your bullshit, Negro. Nobody can hear all your bullshit. Hey, Pauline, where's that Range Rover, bitch?
Just a moment, Morris. Islam. Okay. Go ahead, nobility.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, go ahead, nobility. Tell us where your Range Rover is.
It's a court. It's the court jesters are doing their job. Go ahead.
It also says this is not a check on it, but it looks just like it's a check, basically. But I mean, I understand how corporate runs when it comes to that stuff, but I'm saying I see fraud here using my, because I'm taking control of my straw.
Actually, not taking control of the straw. Let me clarify the wording there. You're not taking control of the straw. You're actually killing that dead thing, because it's already dead. It was a zombie. The all caps was a zombie because it was created by zombies. And what you're doing is creating a new living natural person in legis in all capital letters. Okay.
So my question, I guess, is there a way I can replicate it to where I can get them to deposit that money into my treasury?
Yes, it is. There is a way to do that. The way to do that is to just recreate, reconstruct. See, we're in reconstruction period here. This new era is reconstructing and reconstituting and reconveying, renewing, renaissance of everything that was dead previously before. Okay? So, yes, recreate the check itself. And what you're going to do is you, the sovereign, in capitis diminutio minima, which means the first letter capitalized and the rest of the letters lowercase, is going to issue that to your all caps because you're the creditor. And that is an offer, by the way. Okay? That's an offer. And you can accept that offer or you can reject that offer and rebut that offer. And so with regard to acceptance of the offer, when you give it to your all caps, you want to ensure that you reference Federal Rule for Civil Procedure, Title 4, Sections 17 and 18, which is proper identification of the all caps. Okay. And then now you're saying, okay, this is being issued from the creditor to the living ins legis, and then whatever the process is, whatever, because there's going to be an application and some other things like that, you're going to reconstruct and recreate those so that they're coming from your state. You're issuing.
Ever show you that and put it on the public record?
To your own self. You're issuing it to your own self.
So basically, go to the website that they referred me to, download the application, and reconstruct it.
Reconstruct the application. Don't fill out theirs. Just recreate one that looks just like theirs, except it's coming from you, from your state, your sovereign state. Okay.
So you said since it's an offer, it is possible to...
It is possible to accept it. Everything out there is an offer. Everything is sitting just waiting for us to say, yes, I accept this, yes, I accept that. We just have to accept it properly.
I'm also going to be doing the 6 steps also, like sending the lien.
Yes, that has to be done. I apologize for not mentioning that.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yes. Do I send also the I think it's the trustee fiduciary attorney?
Absolutely, yes. For that, whoever it is that's claiming to be a corporation, you're going to nationalize that resource. So you're going to do that part in terms of using the letterhead and everything, saying that it's from the fiduciary for that company.
Okay.
And then you're also going to send your fiduciary affidavit. So there's 2 fiduciary documents that go. One of them is the affidavit, and the other is the corporate fiduciary attorney in fact document.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I understand it. I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah. Just state who you are. Put the make sure the affidavits accompany the corporate documents that you are creating, because you're creating the corporate document. And see, here's the thing about that. The corporate documents that you create are now creditor documents. So it's as if you were sitting in the CEO's office, which you are, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to give myself a loan. But see, and now there has to be, you have to state the reason for the loan. And when you state the reason for the loan, there's a way to do that also. Okay. Let me show you really quickly, because and this always happens. I was doing some study ahead, and I said I wasn't going to talk about this today, but I might as well talk about it.
Right. Could I ask you a question before you go in?
Sure.
The other one is, is there an account or something I have to have them deposited in, or how does that part work?
So with regard to having them deposit it, you can have them do that. You can actually command that an account be opened for that. Because, see, they already have an account waiting there. Whatever that reservation number is the account number.
Exactly.
So you would assign that to yourself, to your all caps. Now, it's the fiduciary that's assigning it to the all caps. Okay.
Okay, that's what I'll do.
That's a beautiful demonstration to do, because it's just showing us that, everything that's out there right now is an offer. They're all offering, hey, do you want this? Do you want that? What do you want? And we have to know the process to get it. There's a process, a mapping process, in order to get the things that we want, to choose the things that are available to us.
Yeah, I'm outside.
Yeah.
That's how I gotta be until I can get the phone service turned back on.
Islam.
Catch the Wi-Fi when I can.
Islam. This is a time of sacrifice for us, like that nobility, until we figure out how to accept the offers that are being made. Everything that we see is an offer being made. We just have to make it so that it becomes an offer directly to the people instead of, anything else.
Was there something you was about to show me before I asked the question about?
I was. There's a mapping process that the ancestors showed me today, and actually, it's just something that I put together based on all of the things that we know. And that mapping process, let me put that forth. The title of the mapping process is From the Constitution to the Bank.
Constitution to the bank.
From the Constitution to the bank.
Okay.
And it just maps out. For example, let's just talk about it since it's here. Obviously, the ancestors wanted us to talk about it. And then we have some other things that we're going to present as well. Just one moment. Okay. Okay. So, from the Constitution to the bank. This is the part that we, as Moors, needed to understand about anything that we get. Okay? Anything that we get, first of all, we have to know how to acquire it. Gold and silver coin is constitutional, and that is for debts. However, right now, Moors, we don't have any debts. So what are we doing? We're using credit. Credit is constitutional, and it's for everything else. So this map that leads us from the Constitution to the bank starts with appropriations, because remember, we were talking about appropriations, and our thing is, how do we appropriate so that we get the things that we need to get? How do we appropriate? Well, this is how. With everything that it is, whether it be housing, whether it be conveyances, whether it be utilities or anything of that nature, we have to quote this mapping process in our documentation, okay? So we start at the federal level because we're the government. At the federal level, the first thing that we would quote in order to get things is the Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 10, which states that no state shall emit bills of credit. What does that mean? That means that the use of credit is a requirement for that must come from the at the federal level. It starts so anyone wanting to use their credit, that starts at the federal level here. So the Moorish National Republic federal government is who we are. And it's by our courts that bills for credit are emitted. I looked up the word emit, and the word emit means to discharge. And remember, a couple of weeks back, the ancestors were saying to us, and we spoke it out onto the record, that, these banking acts, the Emergency Banking Act and the Bankruptcy Act is talking about discharging of debt. But who's discharging the credit? We are. And so right there in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10 says no state shall. It says a few things about gold and silver coin in payment of debts. And right before that, though, it says emit bills of credit. And we emit bills for credit. Okay? And so it starts at the federal level where appropriations, because in the Constitution it also says that in order to even get to the Treasury, there must be proper appropriation. Appropriation just means, why is this money going anywhere? Why is this funding going anywhere? It's going there because, first of all, Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 10 says that we can emit bills for credit in order to get things. So then it says, in the Constitution, and I want to thank Empress Cynthia for sending something that she sent to me this morning, that one of the subjects put out, because it really brought home, it helped with this process being clarified. Emitting to discharge credit is a federal matter, and it must be done through Congress. And that's why us governing is so important, because this Congress right here that's gathered here today, and those who are listening who are members of the Congress, and when I say members, I mean by bloodline and birthright. We don't have membership cards. We are the government. So credit is a federal matter done by this Congress with the full faith and credit from the people. Well, who is the people? This Congress is the people. So we're using our own full faith and credit, and that process must be enumerated, which is a budget line item. Enumeration is just put it in the budget and attach the law to that. So the Constitution is the foundation for appropriation of Treasury funds, and it says it right there in Article 1 of the Constitution. And that includes bank credits, because bank credits belong to the Moors. So with regard to the bank credits, we can issue bank credits to ourselves, and all standing buildings that have the word bank on the front, it's the law. They must do it. And it's not even them doing it, it's us doing it. There might as well be a machine there, and we're not calling people machines. we're saying systemically. There's a machine that you put these documents in, and what you need comes out. What you have commanded comes out, because we issue commands. We don't have needs and wants. That indicates that we're lacking something. So we issue it by affidavit, and it's a command. The second part, at the federal level, in order to appropriate Treasury funds and credit to yourselves, Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 8, which is the General Welfare Clause, which states that the common defense and the general welfare for the United States is done by us, by the Congress. So general welfare includes being able to do things commercially or publicly or privately or sovereignly where bank credits are concerned, okay? And then what the federal does, this federal government does is we just proclaim and issue a federal Section 8 program in alignment with 1 and 2, these appropriations, and we link it. So then what does that do? That makes that program the law throughout the whole empire because it's federal. It's coming from the government. So then that means that all the states, which we are the state, all the states, for example, we issued the federal Section 8 program, so now Washington here, because we're Washington, we're the land, you all are, whatever states that you are at, that you proclaim, you're the land there. And so you can take this Section 8 appropriation and say, okay, let's look at the state appropriations and apply that so that we can start using, so at the state level we can start using the funds, the appropriations. So how does that work? The state level appropriations is Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 10, which is the federal level. In other words, we're saying the federal and the state agree. And all things that the federal does not have the power to do, the states, those things are the authority of the people and the states. That's in the Constitution. And so then we put Article 1, Section 10, Article 1, Section 8 as well. And then we add something at the state level. But we're also going to bring national banks, 12 U.S.C. 95A, Emergency Banking Law for 1933, and 50 United States Code, subsection 4305, which both say the same thing. So let me point out, too, that there is a difference between U.S.C. codes and United States codes. There's a difference between them. They generally say the same thing, but it's kind of like the constitutions. Every time the constitutions changed jurisdictions, they rewrote it. Just like what we're doing, we're reconstructing everything. They rewrote it, and sometimes they would edit a word like we do and change things a little bit, and then change the code number, add their own codes, whatever the case may be. And that's why that is further proof that what we're doing is absolutely what we should be doing, which is reconstructing, replicating, renaissancing, renewing all the documents. And so what at national banks, 12 U.S.C. subsection 95A, the second paragraph, and 50 United States Code 4305 says is any payment, conveyance, transfer, assignment, or delivery of property or interest therein made to or for the account for the United States or as otherwise directed pursuant to this subdivision or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder shall to the extent thereof be a full acquittance and discharge for all purposes to the credit of the person. And actually, it's to the credit. And again, in our state, we're fixing things. We're reconstructing this. It's to the credit for the person making the same. And no person shall be held liable in any court for or in respect to anything done or omitted in good faith in connection with the administration of or in pursuance of and in reliance on this subdivision or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder, which means we had to have our own United States courts so that we can create an account to put the things on. And we can do that already. The account is already set up because we're here. We are the account. Okay. Now, 50 United States Code 4305 they put it in the context of war. We're actually changing that and putting it in the context of peace because we're not at war. There were two sides. There's the debtor side, which is the war side, and there's the creditor side, which is the peace side. So if you're warring, then you're asking for debt. If you're at peace, then the credit is there. You're the credit. That's the difference. That's why war energy is completely unacceptable on this side. So, and I said on this side, but I mean up here at this level that we are, because again, as above, so below, same thing. And then at the state level appropriations, you now have to, now that you've quoted the Constitution, you've brought in a national banking appropriations code, then you bring in a state code. Okay? So I just used, because I was doing this for housing and utilities and other things. It can be for cell phone service, it can be for conveyances and all of that, as long as those are state vehicles or in support of the state. That's important because there is the public and private side for the state. So that's why they can take conveyances when, not they, we, the state, was claimed, we can take things when we're in law enforcement capacity because it still belongs, even on the private side, it still belongs to the state. And we have protection there because we're the state, period. So the state adds its proclamations and laws and plans in there and codes and says, okay, revise Washington Code Chapter 36.70A. That's called a growth management law for 1990. It's a comprehensive plan where buildings and structures and, things like that they come through that, they're appropriated through that plan. So for your state, all states have a growth management law. All of them do. So this is appropriate for all of our states, okay? And then at the state level also, what did we do in response to this in order to use it? At the state level, you have to issue a program, a public program. Okay? There's a difference because we're not talking about private things right now. We're talking about public things. Why are we talking about public things? Because that's where the credit applies, is in the public. Because it's the credit for the people, by the people, of the people. So at the state level, we issue the public program, which is going to bring in state level public housing and things like that. You can get cell phones through the public. You can get utilities or public utilities. Trash is, it's not even called trash. It's called solid waste and recycling. It's not even called garbage. So under our programs, you can get all of that through this. And I'll just digress just briefly here. Justice Akil, with what you were bringing forth, that is something where you have to appropriate that check that you just received. Appropriate it properly. Why? Because there has to be a use for it that grows the empire, that grows the state. Okay? So everything that we do, it has to have the purpose of growing the state. Does that mean we cannot appropriate things to ourselves for our welfare, general welfare, yes. Vacations and things like that are all general welfare things. But where we are right now, we're growing the empire. And so we're looking at things like a business loan, which you give to yourself. It's a gift from a sovereign. And then you put it on the account of the United States. And then you start growing your business so that you can get the conveyance, the domiciles, the whatever else you need, the cell phones, whatever. And you're doing that all as the government. You're the government, and you're getting the commercial things using your being the fiduciary for the all caps. Okay? And so now that we've issued the public program of growth management, we can start either proclaiming the domiciles that are out there, because there's so many out there, or we can start building through by way of the state can build, because the state has actually been taking over hotels and things like that to use as housing for those who need immediate housing. And again, we're governing all of these things, but we can use them too. And it can go at Section 8 or some other, any of the other appropriation laws. But it has to be under a program of some kind, a public program of some kind, okay? And so then once the state has said, okay, here you go. We've appropriated some funding because we got appropriated some funding from the federal. So the federal will issue $1 trillion for housing. And then that will be distributed among the states. And the states will get, let's just use a figure of $100 million for each state for housing. Okay? And then when the states do it, they can take some of that, they can appropriate some of that and say, okay, we're going to give some to the cities that are in our states. So then they appropriate it this way and present a program, and they say, okay, cities, we're giving each of the cities, $10 million for this process, so that the states can then create a program to appropriate those treasury funds, which is the credit of the people and for the people. That's what the treasury is. We're the treasury on both sides. When and I'll use this as an example, when Donald Trump, the subject doing business as Donald, that was previously doing business as Donald Trump, whenever he would do things, he knew the appropriations process. That's why they couldn't tag him, because he knew the appropriations process. He knew that the money came from the treasury. He knew how to appropriate it. And not only did he know how to appropriate it, but then and that's why they always hired, quote unquote, accountants and lawyers. That's what that was for. All they told them was appropriate this, and then accountants make sure that it's budgeted properly so that they don't go to jail for misusing public funds. Okay? So then the city will appropriate. Okay? Starting from the top all the way to the bottom, and this is in our paperwork. The city paperwork will start with Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 10, General Welfare. Emitting bills for credit, and we will show how the credit came from the federal all the way down through the state and then to the city, and then we'll say, okay, Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 8. Section 8, General Welfare Clause. And a General Welfare Clause, that takes care of everything, really. It takes care of utilities. It takes care of housing. It takes care of transportation. Public transportation made it so that anywhere you needed to go, you didn't have to use commerce and buy a conveyance to get there. because you're talking about something separate there when you're not really separate, but kind of sort of separate, and we'll go into that at some point, either today or at a different time. And we've touched on it many, many times before, the difference between public, which is this, and private, which is going down to the dealership getting a conveyance. That's a private action, but we can still do it. And then it becomes public when it's being done for the state. So we look here at, all we did was take everything from this top up here, from all of these other appropriations, and we said, okay, we're at the city level now. So now we'll take those funds, because this is just a map of where the Treasury money is going. Then we say, okay, we're revised Washington Code. This is a state code, Chapter 36.70A, Growth Management Law for 1990. It's a comprehensive plan to grow the empire. Okay, and this is how things go from the Treasury into the hands of the people, because that's what we're all looking at, is how do things go from the Treasury to the people when the people know they're the creditor. And so then the cities say, okay, we accept from the state and from the federal these things, this Treasury money, in alignment with the Constitution. And that's how come, we're quoting the Constitution when it comes to evictions and utilities and all of that, because we know that it's been appropriated by way of this manner right here. But if we don't say it, they're going to act like, oh, we don't follow that Constitution. We follow something else. This is a code. This is, we're a private corporation. Okay, this is public. All of those, and that's what nationalizing resources is us doing this right here that's on the screen, and then saying that housing is public, it's not private. We get to determine what's public and private when the government shows up like this. And so acceptance of state public program to the cities, we're the cities, and we're writing all of this, and all we have to do is write it up and then notify. And then Federal Way Land Use Ordinance. Now this we showed you, the Federal Way Land Use Ordinance. We showed you that last week, how they had, with regard to the building down the street that we claimed, we did all the proper things to get, the unlawful occupation out of there. They got out. Within 10 days, they were out. And that's how long it took us to do our POW jail demonstration for being on our own land. We were willing to do that because we know who we are. And so all we did in there is just continue to do court actions repeatedly, no matter who, no matter what, court actions. For that whole 10-day period, court actions. And so, so then this is issued, this Federal Way Land Use Ordinance was issued, and then, and it was just showing us how to do it. Okay, and then Federal Way City Code chapters, and we just looked at the the program that they said, in this city, and this is our city, in this city, whenever the city wants to claim a building and make use of that building because maybe it's dilapidated or it's seems to be abandoned or something of that nature, they send out a public notification saying we're going to have a meeting to see how to appropriate the funds for this building, whether we want it to be housing, whether we want it to be a school, a park, whatever we want it to be. It can be a learning center. It can be a community center, an education place. It can even be a place where people come to learn the law. It can be a constitution hall. It can be any of that. And generally a constitution hall would be issued by the federal, and the federal would come in and put it there. So you don't have to go through this, all of that. This map changes when the federal says something is there. It changes when the state says something is there, because that tells you but the funds still have to be appropriated, so it kind of doesn't change. You just have to call it what it is. And that's really what we're doing here, is calling these funds what they are, what they should be. And so Federal Way then will issue, and we've already issued, a Federal Way comprehensive plan. Okay, and all of your cities have that, where they have enacted that, and you have to adopt that. And then reconstruct it, replicate it. And again, you don't have to do the whole thing right off. All you got to do is take one sentence, one code out of there and say, this code is the law and all that surrounds it is the law. And then you've replicated the whole thing. Okay? So, but you do want to read through them, just when you can. But right now we're looking at specific codes, and we say, okay, this whole thing, according to our intention, is the law. I did not go through and read all of Federal Way city codes. I did not do that. I didn't have to. I went in and cherry picked, and we talked about that term. Cherry picking comes from the cherry tree and the Moors being able to pick whatever it is that they are using and make it the law. So then Federal Way issued this Land Use Ordinance 22-938, okay, with regard to that building down the street. But see, in this Land Use Ordinance, they don't even talk about the Constitution. They didn't talk about the banking laws. They didn't talk about any of that, because that is the foundation of what they're doing, and they're supposed to know that. And the people are supposed to know that. And whenever we're to enforce the Constitution, that's what that means, is know at least those two clauses so that you know where the money is coming from. Follow the money. You're the money. So then Federal Way, this is what we did, issued, okay, I don't want it to be black. Number 8. Issued the Land Use Ordinance invitation or summons for public comment. And really it was a testimony is what they call it, because it's a court action. Okay. Now, as we do this, then Justice Akil, the check that you received will have a purpose at law that says that no bank can say no because you're the bank. No bank can say no because you're the bank. So then now let's bring this is where city things start and stop, is right here with the law. Okay, and we can issue, you can go and onto the city websites and look at any of the ordinances out there. Pick an ordinance, apply these to that ordinance, and then go from there, where buildings, structures, whatever it is concerned. And then I went a step further and talked about the county appropriations, because again, we're mapping. Now the county is something special when it comes to the money, because the county can basically, they're so connected, and when I say they, I mean we. The county is the land, and it's starting to come through that the federal gets everything that it gets from the county, because the county is the land. And I'm still looking to see that, because see, the county is boots on the ground, whereas Washington District for Columbia is busy doing federal things. The county is boots on the ground, so the county can tell the federal This is what's necessary. This is what is needed. And then, and I'm not saying that the county has more authority than the federal. I'm saying they're one and the same and working hand in hand. So where the county is concerned, the county didn't have to go through the states and the cities. The county, in order to implement housing and implement processes and programs to help get domiciles and things like and resources, the county just went straight to the Constitution, and then the White House, which is the federal, which is us, issued the American Rescue Plan, and the county just looked at what was issued at the federal level and said, okay, let's go ahead and start putting programs together. So what did they do? The first thing they did was put a growth management planning council together. And that growth management planning council began to issue, because see, the law is for us to issue things, issue public programs so that the Moors can get what they need and so that everyone can get what they need, because this is not just for Moors, it's for everyone. Moors must govern it, though. So what did they do? They issued requests for proposal, which is just a block of funds on affordable housing or for affordable housing. Okay, so when we're looking at the laws, we should constantly be issuing something, whether it at each level there should be an issue, and that issue, and I know I can hear it. Those who know the Biblios Heliotheque, which is the ancient writings of the ancient Sibyls that have been hypothecated by, foreign matter. When you talk about the issue of blood, the woman had an issue of blood. That knowing who the Christ is helped her with that issue of blood. She was healed. What does that mean? That means that any programs that are going to be lawful must be issued by the lawful original indigenous people. We must govern. That way, all of the energies on our documents are lawful and legal, both. This is the connection between lawful and legal right here. And so the issue of blood is, who is it that's issuing the programs? That's who is going to benefit. And that's what we've been looking at in that funny mirror that we've been looking at all this time, where it seemed like foreigners had the best of everything, like they could come over and just get the best of everything while we were, suffering and poor and whatever, looking in the funny mirror, okay, because that's a mirror we were looking at. And so that funny mirror that we have shattered is saying, okay, now we are issuing the processes, the program, the funding, because this is all, when they say follow the money, this is what that means. Follow it from the Constitution to the bank. And that's why we called it that, from the Constitution to the bank. So when you're talking about enforce the Constitution, it's this also. Okay? So Justice Akil, with regard to that, whoever that corporation is that issued that check, they already know all of this. But how will, and I'm not asking you, I'm speaking in general to the Moors. As you're accepting the offers lawfully, how will it be used? You get to state how it's going to be used by what's here on the screen, by the law. And that will ensure that nobody is at the club making it rain. So, with that being said, are there any questions or comments with regard to appropriations and how appropriations works? Islam, Empress.
Now, Grand Rising, you mentioned utilities in the mix of all of this.
Yes. Yeah.
All of these processes are required for utilities also? I mean, is this...
So we're getting utilities for everyone because utilities are public.
Right.
And we'll go into greater detail in just a moment on that.
Oh, okay. So shall I...
We will go in. Yeah. So utilities are public.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to put that in place so that the corporations stand down because we already leaned them and everything. They're out of the way. What we're doing is removing it from their private to our public. That is the republic.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that because the private was commercial. That's why it was private corporations doing things. But when we stand and do this, and Empress, again, this work is done for you already, starting from the top. All you have to do, these same articles that we've quoted here, you quoted all the way down to where you're going, whatever it is that you want the money to be appropriated to.
Okay.
So
one of the things with the utility, former utility companies or whatever the hell they are, and corporations here, and they're private.
Those are your resources.
And they, in the state that they are in their fraudulent dead state, they coerce people because they cut people off. Even because utilities are, as you stated, they're public, and they're also prepaid.
Yes.
And so they have a system. Everything is now more or less online. And if you don't go along with their fraudulent rules, they take your resource.
So with it being online, all that is saying, go ahead and send documentation. See, everyone is now looking for the physical to manifest. That's why everything went virtual. Crypto is a key. That's a key.
Yeah.
Virtual means that ain't real because all they're doing is going back where they came from. They're not real. They were never real. And now it's make it manifest, make it real.
Okay.
And we do that this way with our affidavits and liens and things like that.
Okay. And we would still, and I know you said you're going to go into this further, but
yes.
For instance, the fraudulent presentments that they send, the debt instruments that they send, we reproduce those.
Yes.
And put those along with the affidavits. And
you accept the offer and say, I accept this credit.
Yeah.
I'm issuing it to myself. I accept that credit. Make a note of it. And that's what you're telling them is update the record. Okay. And that system will update, and you won't even hear from them because everything is electronic. They're not real. They never were real. So when we talk about foreigners leaving the land, that's an indication that they're leaving because there's not a whole bunch of operators somewhere saying, nope. It's all going virtual so that we can manifest it here.
So that we can, and in addition, we would also issue the resignation, the fiduciary resignation.
Yes.
Okay, along with our own fiduciary and everything else.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, and what our government is doing also, Empress, because we're all the government, is we're actually putting the processes in place, and we'll have a stack of documents probably like this, but anyone who replicates that stack of documents is going to get exactly what they need. We're preparing for everyone else to wake up and do the processes. And then even if they don't know those processes, they'll just need to declare their nationality, and the issue of blood kicks in for them, and then they're over here with us getting public whatever they need.
Whatever they come on. Right. Okay, wonderful. Yes. Thank you.
We are the forerunners and the forerunners of that. We reign over those processes. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
And it takes some work. Thank you for your question, Empress.
Yeah, it is a wonderful time to be there. Yeah.
Islam. This is the issue of blood and having that issue resolved and remedied. You know, it's already done. All you have to do is quote what's on the screen and then find the city code and make it the law there for you, and then notify. I saw something really key with regard to utilities. The utilities is based on what you call the street out there, the land out there in front of your domicile.
Yeah.
You know, so let's go into that part, because there's some language that we need to know in order to make things public, to go from private to public.
Okay.
Islam,
Emperor.
Okay, pertaining to Jamaica, Power and Light, you have some foreigners running the power company there in Korea, Japan.
Yep.
And it's only two Jamaicans on the board. So if we don't lean them, they continue to act like they're Jamaicans, which if you look at them, they can't be from Jamaica. And look, they're from Korea and Japan.
One is Michel Gontoir from France, and one is Kom Young something from Korea. I have actually leaned them, and I have actually sent them a Quran for some things, some violations that they've done personally. But yes, I realize and they call themselves Jamaica Public Service, but they have nothing. Well, they're the corporation.
Right.
Actually, the land is not even called Jamaica.
Right.
The actual land, that's not its name.
That's a corporate fiction.
Right, exactly.
Now, Empress, we will know whether it's corporate or whether it's public by whether they call it a service or whether they call it a program. Services are issued by a corporation. Programs are issued by us, the government.
Okay. So
program. Think about that word and look that word up more. Program, the word program. We are reprogramming everything and everyone. Islam.
Let me ask a question then, if I may.
Yes.
Being that the corporation refers to itself and is called Jamaica Public Service, when I replicate then these documents, do I then Jamaica Public Program?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. See, it's the programming that had us thinking they were the government.
Right.
When they were really supposed to be servants. They're saying that when they say service. They're
telling you who they are, but we've been clouded and miseducated and every other thing. So yeah. They I like to say that art is always showing. It's just that we are not necessarily seeing it for what it is.
We didn't before, but we can see it now.
We do now. Hello. Yeah.
And I will say this about that. Once I really took a look at what they were doing, it's a service in order for us to look at it and say, okay, this is how we're going to govern that and make it public. So they're on the one hand, they are definitely assisting us, like chapter 29 says in Circle 7, Holy Quran, verses 1 and 2. And that awareness becomes clearer and clearer the more we wake up and realize that again, we're not at war. Right. We're not at war with them. It looks like they're doing craziness when we're asleep, because that it is crazy from that perspective. It's crazy. Yeah. It is. But when we wake up and realize that we're the government and that we should have been programming the system ourselves, because see, we're programmers of the system. That's what we're doing. We are the ultimate.
Doing what they're supposed to do. They're being themselves, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, in everything they do, whether it stinks or not.
Yeah.
They're just being and doing.
Servants.
Service, yeah.
They're servants. It was a government services corporation.
Right.
So all we did was take that back, and we can literally stick that in our back pocket and just hold it back there. We don't even have to use it. Because everything is public. Everything is public. And we're just returning things back to the public. Republic. That's why everybody keeps saying the republic, the republic.
Yep, it's going right back.
And it happens by the Constitution. And so they've been pointing to the Constitution, and they've been saying republic, republic, republic.
Yeah. Words, again, words.
Yes.
Sounds. Yeah. Yeah.
And when I see what they've been pointing at, I'm like, oh, okay. So, y'all did some raggedy stuff, but you're helping. Okay. That's good. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
We'll take that.
Yeah.
Now we see the purpose for you being here that doesn't look like a war.
Right.
When we thought we were a part of them, it looked like war.
Exactly.
But then, when we realize that we govern them and that we govern everything and that we're programming everything, then voila.
No need for that.
Abracadabra.
Abracadabra.
Yes, Islam. Yes, I will, Justice Markel. Thank you. Just one moment. I apologize. I saw that. It's unlocked. Thank you. I apologize for that, Justice Markel. Islam. So, yes, they're doing what they were hired to do, which is point and say. And again, everything that they put on, that looks like they put it out there is a copy, and then they changed a couple of words here and there. And that's all we have to do is bring that back. And I wouldn't say we're the yin to their yang. We're the yin to each other's yang. They are a shadow of the lower self. They're a shadow of the lower self. And that's why they look so dark and scary sometimes, So, yeah. Let me just see here. Let me put that one out. Let me put that out of here. Yes, you're going out of here. Okay. Just a moment. I'm hoping that everyone made it in. Okay. So when we give a write-up, and just our documents don't have to be that long. They don't have to be that long. All we have to do is do this, quote each one of those, and then state what it is that we want. Bam, right there.
Read all of those failed demonstrations of Pauline's in the chat. Those are all failed.
Let me just say this to the Moors, because we can't even speak to the court jester because they're incompetent.
You're speaking to me already, Pauline. You acknowledge me every time I come on here.
Let me just say this, Moors.
You acknowledge me every time I come on here, Pauline.
Okay, we have to finish the processes, Moors. We have to finish the processes and do it lawfully so that it cannot be challenged by anyone. And when I say it cannot be challenged, what I mean is that the law stands. The law stands. Okay? Islam, nobility, no worries. Justice Markell, no worries. So they do that the court jesters have previously been doing that all the time. So we have our job, Morris, is to govern, and this is how government is done. Okay, this is how government is done, and this is how we get the things that are available to us. So when we do a demonstration and the demonstration looks like it didn't manifest, that means that it's unfinished. It doesn't mean that's not a no. That's a yes. Keep going. Because everything already belongs to us. We just have to put it in place, map the money to it, map the funding, because every single dollar is appropriated and you can map straight to it. Every single dollar is constitutional. So now, I want to go into let's see. So we've shown how to appropriate funds. This is where the money comes from. There are different levels and different ways to do that. So again, Morris, when people talk about, gold and silver coin in payment of debts, okay, that's fine. Know that a coin is a sovereign, which is us. And know that we're the gold and the silver too, because we come from the land. We actually have gold and silver running through our system. See, the only ones that ever tell us that is our teachers, who really they know who we really are. Okay. So with that being said, I want to now move to some of the other to respond to, and not respond, but present some of the other ways that we access our vast estate by use of the law, keeping in mind what we just discussed. So, our fiduciary power. Now, we have been wondering what this treasury looks like. We've been wondering that. What does this treasury look like? Hold on for just one moment. In fact, let me put that back up here. Take a moment to read this, Morris. I'm going to here. Take a moment to read this, and then we'll discuss it. Okay? Please. Islam. Take a moment to read that, and then we will discuss it. Islam. Okay. So, with regard, Empress Shasha, with regard to those that were doing the services there, they even had a Moor who was over them. He was a sleeping Moor, but they had a Moor who was over him doing business as prime minister there.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're modeling. They're modeling.
Okay.
You know. So now Moors, we have been looking to see, okay, how internationally and universally who is it that is really pulling all the strings where treasury and money is concerned. How does that happen? Let me answer that. It's the Moors. So when we first did our first lien on the United States Corporation Company, we sent that lien and we put it on the public record. We put the numbers and all of that on the public record. We sent one of the notifications that we sent was to Bern, Switzerland. Bern, Switzerland. And at the time, we were sending it to Bern, Switzerland to notify the Universal Postal Union Services Company. That's what we thought. And we did that. It made it there, you know, and everything. At that time, we did not know that the Swiss National Bank is where the rest of the earth was getting their U.S. dollars. So, and again, we're leading, everything that we talk about is mapping out the money all the way to the hands of the people. That's why we're talking about all of this. So we, the unified state, have control of our own servant, known as our legal entity, which is in all caps ins legis. The result of this is that we are now the controller for all banks, all corporations, etc. How do we know this? Many have been looking at the news and looking at and hearing something about a bank called Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank and other quote-unquote central banks, because that's what they were doing business as, a central bank. Well, they're models for us to look at. And they were all getting everything there. So the Federal Reserve would speak to them. The Treasury would speak to them. And I'm using those terms in terms of the services, because that's not who that is. We're the Treasury and all of that. And they would issue things to other countries, other nations, etc., as a model. And we know they're not nations or countries. They're just they're actors. So I'll just use that term. And so you may have heard about the actors, Credit Suisse Bank falling apart. Some may ask, why is this a big deal? Well, Credit Suisse Bank was acting as the worldwide central bank frontrunner and acting liaison between the rest of the world and the U.S. Federal Reserve by claiming our legal entities as an asset on their books. How were they doing that? Any banking that was being done, they would issue U.S. dollars to others based on what the Federal Reserve, quote, actors told them here about, do you have any contracts from the heirs that they have signed so that some resources can be issued. because the actors that were doing business at the Federal Reserve were the holders of the contracts. So they had that system where, and they're acting, where they could look and see, was there a warrant issued for Pauline Ritchie? Did she sign this or that, a utility bill? Or is there something going on here? Is there a contract? Is there a loan out there? What's out there? And this is this was monitored for each and every one of us. That's why they always wanted you to present their ID and not yours, your state IDs, because we're the state and all of that. They didn't want that. They wanted you to present their stuff so that you can contract, okay? And that was an overlay system. It was an overlay of the system, because the system's not theirs, it's ours. So Credit Suisse was one of the faces, the actors that were doing business as a central bank. And behind Credit Suisse was Swiss National Bank. Swiss National Bank. Why is that important? Because the Swiss National Bank has gold on their books. But they had to have a certain amount of gold and a certain amount of U.S. dollars that were issued in fiat currency. And we're going to show you that and prove it. Because, again, this is where that fiat piece and all of that we've been looking at in the funny mirror, and the Moors and the gold-backed economic powerhouse come. This is where they are looking at each other in the mirror, okay, so to speak. So according to regulatory requirements, in order for a bank to even be operating, they have to have our assent by way of a contract with our state-owned legal entity on their books as reserves. Now, this sentence right here, we're talking about banks, but we're also talking about our banks as well, okay? Because our banks, we are our bank. So even where in this new economic system that and it's not new, it's ancient. In our ancient economic system, we actually have to, again, like Justice Akil was talking about a check being issued, he has to issue that and put that on his own bank's reserves. That's what's going to happen. As he does that demonstration, that all caps is going to go into the bank as a reserve and say, hey, we got some gold-backed reserves here. Because he's in his proper status and he's doing things by affidavit and then as the fiduciary for himself, for the all caps rather, not himself, but the all caps, which is a servant to him. So these banks, if the banks fail, and when I say banks, I'm talking the actors, if they fail, which is what you're seeing now, when the actors fell below the required minimum percentage of legal entities on the ledgers due to our removal of our own capital, okay, that means we just took our all caps and said, this is us, this is ours, this is our servant. We created it, this is our servant. And that thing that you have is not real. That doesn't have anything to do with us. If they fall below the required minimum of having those all caps, they need a certain number of them on the ledgers as reserves, then they are at risk for default, bankruptcy, closure, liquidation, or reorganization if the terms are not met or worked out. Because sometimes, the reason people filed bankruptcy was so that they could reorganize and start fresh. Well, that one is not starting fresh. We're the fresh. We're the living, because that's a dead system. So we started fresh. That's why we did everything from, you could say from scratch, but from its original state is what we say. So more importantly, Credit Suisse is the facade or the face for the Swiss National Bank, which is the link between the Moors gold-backed economy and a fiat economy. Now, even in our gold-backed economy, there is going to be some issuing of paper because we have to think about the citizens, or the subjects rather. So that is where the two meet as master in the national sense and servant in the corporate sense. Okay? So when you see, and the reason I mentioned Bern, Switzerland, is because the Swiss National Bank is at Bern, Switzerland, and the building is such a beautiful Moorish presentment that is just amazing. I mean, it literally almost took my breath away when I saw the building that they issued from. And the lettering on the building is in ancient English and then common English. So either way, we overstand it. Either way, we overstand the language that's written on the buildings. So where these two meet, let's see the stories by way of a simple Google search.
Islam.
Okay, Islam.
Well, also, it wasn't just our all caps, because we've leaned the corporate fictions also, and that would fall in under our own allegiance also, because we've leaned corporations, we've leaned corporate businesses, we've leaned banks, and that was all pulling those corporate all cap names out of their ledgers also.
Yes. They could not behave as a corporate fiction when we did that.
Exactly. Oh, and when we leaned, I know that I leaned the corporate courts. That was another big one out of their money, because the family courts, as it were, they're the biggest money launderer and people trafficking in the whole world.
So when we do our liens, yes, Empress, in as a camel backing on that, on what you just said, when we do our liens, Moors, that's what we're doing, is pulling resources that were being used fraudulently. We're pulling those resources out of their hands and sending those and essentially throwing those resources in jail. And it's not a resource that we're throwing in jail. It's their ability to use it, because all they did, it's like I'll just use the example of a building standing there, and no one has claimed the building, so to speak. Those who own the building are out of town, and someone comes and they put some paper on that building and say, okay, this is the deed, this is this building, this paper says that building is mine. Well, that's what corpses did. They just said, here's the paper. The building, now they know the building is not theirs because they don't create title to it. They know that ultimately the building belongs to the people, to the Moors, the people, the original indigenous sovereign ancient people. And what they do is they say, well, if the Moors aren't using it, I'm just going to put some paper in the way here, put some corporate paper, and then I'll just start doing commerce out of here, because that's really all that they could do was commerce. So then the Moors come and we're back on our land, and we say, oh, somebody's in our building, squatting. Let's see who it is. Let's look in the records and see who it is, and we'll put a lien on them. And we will, let's see what they're doing. Are they helping the people? Are they being constitutional in the first place? And the answer will always be no, because we're the constitutional government. And so they're doing corporate things, so they will go by their corporate codes and statutes, when we will go by the Constitution first, and then the Constitution will be the charter for anything else that's done, whether it be public programs or public services. So whenever we're looking at any resource, all we do is properly rebut the paper that was put on top of it, which is what liens do. They properly rebut any fictitious claim to anything, and the only way that you can, according to the law, the way that proper claim on anything is made is it must be done by a creditor and not a debtor. Okay? So having said that, we want to look at how the creditors, have been doing things, and then we're also looking at it from the perspective of the government services servants, because they modeled for us. So let's just take a look at that. So Credit Suisse Bank, in all capital letters and black ink in these brackets here, was the unlawful servant who did something unlawful in terms of this one. Now, there's two Credit Suisse banks. There's the lawful Credit Suisse Bank, which is this one in blue in Capitis Diminutio Minima. That Credit Suisse Bank is a loyal servant and a loyal subject, and those that were operating that and modeling for us how to do it the right way are the loyal subjects. Okay, and then we're the original Credit Suisse Bank in all lowercase letters. So this unlawful, unruly Credit Suisse Bank here that was doing things as if we were corporate fictions has been liened as an agent, principal, heir, assign, or any derivative thereof of the Federal Reserve. The actors doing business that were previously doing business as Federal Reserve. So now we're not mad at Credit Suisse, because Credit Suisse is in subject status now. So let's take a look at how at the gold-backed side of Credit Suisse. So what we've been seeing in the news is it would say some, and this is a Google search that I did on the story, some Credit Suisse units breached liquidity rules amid falling, there was some falling, they went below their capital requirements. Why am I using the word capital? Because we're talking about the all caps and or the in capitis diminutio minima. So it says here, and I just pulled bits and pieces of the stories. These outflows have partially utilized liquidity buffers at the group level and legal entity level, and we have fallen below certain legal and it said entity level requirements. Here it says Credit Suisse has taken measures to reduce risks. That's that risk we talked about. If they don't have enough of us assenting, okay, by signing the documents and saying, hey, and go ahead and capitalize this, improve its capital situation, because that's what the problem is that there's a requirement that you have to have some heirs. You have to have at least one heir if you're going to do business at this earth, on this earth. There has to be at least one heir who says, we assent to that. We're okay with that. How do we do that? By signing, by autographing. Okay? It says here there was something else going on where equity, they were talking about equity upon Credit Suisse Group's American groups or the group, that's Credit Suisse AG. Anytime you see AG, generally they're talking about the American group. Reported CET1 ratio falling below 7%. CET1 is Tier 1 credit equities. That's the Moors. Tier 1 credit equities. It's not saying equality, it's saying equity. Okay. Think acquittance. The word quit is right there, sitting right there. When you talk about equity, it means that if the creditors don't agree and they quit that, then you got an equity problem. Acquittance means that the heirs have quitted any debt that has to do with whatever the action is. And then here, Credit Suisse Group AG is a global investment bank and financial services firm founded and based in Switzerland, headquartered in Zurich. Credit Suisse is, they have two headquarters. The Zurich headquarters, whenever they refer to the Zurich headquarters, they're talking about the commercial headquarters. Whenever they talk about Credit Suisse or the Swiss National Bank, rather, I meant to say the Swiss National Bank. Swiss National Bank is, they have a Zurich headquarters and they have which is their commercial arm, and then they have the Bern, Switzerland headquarters for the Swiss National Bank, which has the gold on the books. So let's keep going so we can show you what this has to do with the Moors and the gold and how we govern the treasury and the money with regard to appropriations and things using gold and silver and credit. So I did some more digging on the Swiss National Bank, and I found out that they have a universal, they call it a federal constitution. And when I say they, I mean we. We have a federal monetary constitution, and I'll put the link to it in the chat. You will want to read it, because Article 9 of that federal constitution, where monetary policy is concerned, and let me state this, that the original Swiss National Bank was not over there, it's over here on this land. It says money and currency are a federal matter. Now, this is in direct alignment with the Constitution for the United States. It says the Confederation shall have the exclusive right to coin money and to issue banknotes. That means the federal government, thus the word confederation, except we use the word federal or federation. So even when you think about the Iroquois Federation of Nations, that was us still doing the same thing. We were a federation instead of a confederation. So number 2 says, as an independent central bank, and note the capitalization or lack thereof, independent central bank, the Swiss National Bank shall follow a monetary policy which serves the general interest of the country. Whenever you see the word general, go right back to Article 1, Section 8, which is the general welfare. It says further here on the screen, it shall be administered with the cooperation and under the supervision of the Confederation. Now, when they say Confederation, they're talking about the Services Corporation. When you say Federation or Federal, you're talking about public programs, the national government. It says, so they're telling you here that even though they are the Swiss National Bank, they're implementing something that's going to be done by a confederation, which is the funny mirror to the federal or the federation. So the Swiss National Bank shall create sufficient monetary reserves from its profits A part of these reserves shall be held in gold. Think part and parcel for your government. It says at least 2/3 of the net profits of the Swiss National Bank shall be credited to the cantons. Now, I would like for someone to grab a dictionary and define the word canton so that you will know where 2/3 of the net profits of this bank holding gold goes to. I can shortcut that. I can give you a shortcut to the definition by asking who are the originals of all. So cantons, does someone have a dictionary where they can define that word? Let me make sure that the bill, oh yes, okay. And not all dictionaries have that word in it, by the way. Cantons.
Islam.
Well,
I just Googled it, and it says a noun, a subdivision of a country established for political or administrative purposes. And then it also says, what's the meaning of the canton? Definition, entry 1 of 2. A small territorial division of a country, such as one of the states of the Swiss Confederation. B, a division of a French arrondissement, arrondissement, and so.
Okay, thank you, Empress.
You're welcome.
It says here also, oh, go ahead, Empress.
But then it reads also, why is it called a canton? It says, while a canton was first founded in 1805, it was first incorporated as a village in 1822 and did not become a city until 1838. Rosales Wells, the surveyor who divided the land named after it, Canton, China, the name was a memorial to a trader named John O'Delly, who was well admired.
So then I'm hearing the word land in there.
Yes.
So in the chat, Empress Saba put canton means piece, portion, corner, or angle. Divide into districts.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be like Washington District for Columbia?
Yes.
So really what it is Empress Rosetta put provide housing for military. In this dictionary that I have here, which is in 1828, a Webster's 1828, unabridged, a canton as a noun is a region, a district, a corner. It says one of the political divisions of a country or territory. In Switzerland, it is a state. In France, it's a subdivision containing a group of communes. In heraldry, a part of the design on a shield usually occupying the upper right corner. The part of a flag occupying the upper corner next to the staff, as the blue field studded with stars in the flag of the United States. In architecture, it is a corner or any projection. And it says here, canton, and allot quarters to troops, to divide into cantons. So what a canton it is states indeed. What a canton is, for all intents and purposes, Washington, D.C., those who were there were cantons in that last era. That's why they took 2/3 of what was given, what the Swiss National Bank was given, and 2/3 was not the gold. 2/3 was that other part. I'm sorry, the 1/3 was the gold part. So the 1/3 was the gold is the lesser part, and then the 2/3 that went to DC was the fiat part. Now, where we're concerned, our monetary policy universally is that 2/3 of the net profits for our national bank go to the Moors, the government, the state. And 1/3 goes to the subjects. Okay? So it's flipped back on its the right side. And the 2/3 now is the gold part, and the 1/3 is the fiat part. And it's not really fiat, it's paper. So the United States corporation company that we created is what is going to assist the subjects, and as long as they're here, okay. But we have to implement it first. So that's where the printing of paper notes is concerned, okay. But in our government status, which is above that, because again, that's just a small part. That's a special purpose vehicle financially that's on our land that has to issue gold-backed money, gold-backed notes, okay? But in our governmental capacity, we do things by using our credit. See, the reason that bank notes were even issued is because somebody didn't have credit to use. So then that's for those who don't have credit. That's what bank notes were for.
Islam. Also, promissory notes was the thing. That's where they started from. The promise to give and pay.
Yeah. That's for those who, and that's us issuing credit to them. And issuing credit to our all caps also. So anyone using an all caps was actually using our credit. That includes all caps Credit Suisse, or all caps Bank of America, or all caps Wells Fargo. They were using our credit, but we didn't know it. So that's where the war came in at. But now we're not at war, we're at peace. We're the peace and the creditors. Anytime you think creditor, think peace. Anytime you think creditor, think peace. And anytime you see somebody warring, that's debt energy. So I'll put the link to this Constitution, this federal Constitution, in here's Article 99. And it's funny because none of us ever really heard of this Constitution when we were in school. They didn't teach us anything about this Constitution right here that says that the banks have gold. They didn't say nothing. Did any of you ever hear of this?
No.
I didn't. And even what was, see, this is what is taught in the Moorish schools. Islam, Empress.
This just came to my mind, and you talked about 2/3 and 1/3. So 2/3 was the in the corporate was the paper, and 2/3 was the gold. And it makes me think about the 3/5 of a person in the Constitution.
Oh yes, Empress, yes. Oh yes, direct correlation. Come on, Empress.
Yeah, and I just looked it up, and let me, if I may, let me see if I can find it right now.
That's where that came from. That's why they even assigned it that.
Yeah, I couldn't because, and also the 2/3 is.
Or well, they actually said 3/5. I believe they said 3/5, but it's still part.
But it's the same because really 3/5 and 2/3 are very close. 2/3 is 0.667. 3/5 is 0.6. So my brain just was like something. So I went off with that. And in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution declared that any person who was not free would be counted as 3/5 of a free individual for the purposes of determining congressional representation. The 3/5 clause thus increased the political power of slaveholding states.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, it just made me. That's what came to mind when that fraction was put forward.
Yeah. Well, the all caps was it is a servant to the Moors.
Well, that's it. And I did put in the chat. Let me send it. You said look up service, and service is slave, really.
Yes.
Text in here, but
yeah. See, that word has two sides to it also. The word slave even has two sides. You know, yes, we've been, you know, it's been given that a very horrible connotation, but there is also a denotation. There is also. So we're not negating the connotation. We're not saying that connotation doesn't exist. We're saying there's a denotation too. The denotation is it's a services corporation. It serves the Moors. It serves the people.
Goes back, I mean, because it's the Slavic people whom were the servants.
Right. Yes. And that was something that was, you know, that was not done by conquer. And I wanted to bring this out a couple of weeks back, but I might as well put it on the screen now so that we really know what that means. That you know that we put it on the public record that we know what it means. Listen, the Moors, and this is so important that we know this right here. This part that we're about to put on the screen. So I'm going to put it in nice big bold letters.
Rose, tell us why you were evicted.
Go ahead and, I'll go ahead and make sure that you all know the difference between these two words, because these two words are going to be the two words that make all the difference in the world. These two words. We were never conquered. Never were we ever conquered, Moors. Know that. The real word is that word. We were never this. It was always that. Concur. And Empress Jatali put something in the chat. Yes. I'll unlock it for Justice Consul. Employees, yes, employees are servants. That's why they're called public servants. That's why they're called public servants. They started that. We didn't have a 9-to-5 job when they came here. We didn't have it. Everything was public. And it was the republic. We did everything. We did everything. So, Moors, when we're looking at these words and looking at what we have to do, if we look closely at the words and closely at what's been used and what's been stated, we will see that it's been about us all along. No one could ever. Listen. We have no foes that are formidable. We don't have foes at all, really. Our greatest foe. That's why our greatest foe was always previously within us. Until we come into the oneness or at one-ment of who we are. So, yes, we were never conquered. We just concurred. So, now, let me show you also this with regard to the Swiss National Bank. Did we put that? Yeah, we put that in there. The entire federal constitution, I'll put that in the chat as well, is there. It's worth reading. It's worth reading. I'm still making my way through it. It's worth reading, though.
Islam.
Islam nobility.
I was just thinking about Canton. Guess what? We do have one within the United States. The fake United States. We do have a canton in the fake United States. Guess what that is? Canton, Ohio.
Oh, I thought about that when I saw that. I thought about that
because it is a city, and the county seat of Stark County, and that's in Ohio.
And that's actually on the land. If it's in Ohio, if it's in Ohio, that's ours. If it's that state of Ohio, that's the fakes.
No, it's stated as Canton, Ohio.
Yeah, so
but
then that's the land. Yeah, that's the land.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have basically other names for Canton, such as constituency, which are the words district, county, referred to as a province, region, referred to as area, borough, such as in Louisiana, quarters, or just one quarter, and sections, or just one section, subdivision. All those are cantons.
Yeah. This is a canton here also because we stated on that's why we call it Ancient Washington District for Columbia. It is also Washington, the state, but it's also it's a judicial district for our nation. Because we put that on the public record. We had to have one. And all of the territories are judicial districts as long as the law is being ministered by the Moors, as long as our courts are active. So there's more than, cantons are everywhere in our state and our empire as well. So 2/3 of the banking resources go to the cantons, but that's only to get it out to the people. That's what Washington, D.C., that corporate services place did. They printed up a bunch of notes and made sure all the corporations got them so that they could get them to the people. Then start taking them back. So
Islam
nobility.
Yes, because to further make known about the cantons, they're mostly significantly responsible for welfare, health care, law enforcement, public education, retain the power of taxation. So basically, those are the duties on the cantons. The significance of it.
What we do is Article 1, Section 8.
Yes, I yield.
Justice, where did you see that correlation with cantons, or is that one that just came to your spirit? Because that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, because I basically used to work in Cleveland, Ohio years ago, and I was very, like traveling the geographical setting of that area, I was familiar with. They refer to as canton, as opposed to saying canton. And I basically, and I also, if you refer to the geographics records, you will find it in the geographical records, whereby you'll see the significance and the responsibilities of cantons.
Yes.
But basically, I think if you more likely we can Google it and find it in the system.
Yeah. See, the cantons is also, there's a cantons, a map for that. There's a map.
Yes, geographical. Yes. Yeah, geographical settings. Yes, all that inclusive.
And that map does not look like a map of the quote unquote United States.
Well, after the Civil War, they burned, I would say, all the books, basically, if they could find, and rezone everything, set up their own system, I would say. So it left us puzzled, totally at odds. So basically, the truth is you have to do some serious digging to get to the truth of everything, because they rezone, remap the geographical true settings of everything has been renamed. So that's where we are. But the closest we're going to come to those responsibilities of the cantons, closest we're going to come is find it in I would say, the Google. We can Google it and find it there.
Or we can look at the Constitution.
We're going to come.
And then create what the cantons do, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, because the cantons retain all powers, not delegated by the Confederation.
Islam.
Which basically, under the federal Constitution, yes, you're right. We'll find it there.
Yeah. So the cantons is whoever it is that's governing. Whoever it is that's governing.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
And so, again, we actually can issue the resources to ourselves. Now, think about Delarium when you think about what you're seeing on the screen and who has the authority to do that. And what makes it so that it's goal-backed, aside from us stating that. Yes, there is a Canton, Michigan. There's a Canton, Michigan.
I didn't realize that. I know it's the one that I was referring to is basically closer. It's near, what's the name of that city? I'm trying to think.
Someone says there's a Canton, Illinois also.
Wow.
Yeah. So the map tells us where everything is, really. I'm sure there's a Canton over here somewhere.
Islam, because there's a Canton, New York. I just Googled it.
Oh.
And I said, it says, what is Canton, New York famous for? The village of Canton is an attractive college community with historic business center, golf course, lovely parks, and vibrant culture. The county seat at St. Lawrence County. It is home to 2 excellent universities, so on and so forth. But so I guess what it means is that there's a Canton everywhere in every state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, basically, Canton is really referred to as a small territorial division of a country, or basically they name it as a city as well. But Canton is basically south of Akron in northeast Ohio. That's basically closest. Yes.
What it really is a governing judicial district. It's a small judicial district where government is done. And we can look at Washington, D.C., where the services were coming from previously, and see that, okay, that's what a canton is.
Right. But see, Washington, D.C. is a lot of, in general, when we were in school, we thought it was a state. No, Washington, D.C. is a city. It's a city.
It's not even a city. It's a district.
It's true. But you're right.
But, think about the map of money. If it doesn't have to go through the state, that's why it wasn't a state. It didn't have to go through the city. That's why it wasn't a city. It didn't have to go through a county either. It was the top. That's why it sat there like that.
Well, it was all by design, because where Washington, D.C. is setting at this very point is neutral. That was the main purpose, to make certain that it's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, to me, we have the information. We're being given all the answers. The answers are there. So now, back to what's on the screen. Notice, to coin money is to state what constitutes money in our state. So when they say that the Confederation shall have the exclusive right to coin money and to issue banknotes, money is a federal matter. Stating what constitutes money is also coining money. So have you heard of the term to coin a term? If I coin a term, that means I just made that term and I defined it. I stated what it is and I defined it. So to coin money, some people, most people think, oh, we have to have a printing press and we have to stamp these coins, and that's the money. Okay, no. That's not what coin money actually means. That's one of the definitions of, that's what coining money looks like if you use it in that context. But if I coin a term, that means I made up that term and defined it like the Phoenicians do. So if I coin money, that means I can say that, okay, sea salt is money in our state. Well, I just coined money. I just coined it. I can say sea salt. I can say the word of the Moors is the money, because they're the sovereigns. Oh, then the word becomes the bond. If I say, or if any of us say, for that matter. You know, if we say, that's what exchange is when people say, when they say, okay, this is how we'll do this. Give me this for that, and we'll call it even. Then they're saying those two things are money. So I pulled up, I said, well, let me look. After looking at this and knowing what I know about gold and silver and all that we do and everything that we've seen and the things that the ancestors have told us about the lettering and the writing and the red ink and all of that, I said, well, if this Swiss National Bank is issuing banknotes, their banknotes have to have some red on it somewhere. It has to have some red lettering on it. So I pulled it up, and sure enough, big red letters on the money in all capital letters. Plain and simple. And the word national is written in ancient English as Națională. Banca Națională Svizzera. Swiss National Bank. Svizzera. So then if you go to a Gullah Geechee dictionary, or you go to a French dictionary or any other dictionary, you're going to see words very similar to these words right here. Now, when you see this word Națională, think Nazi, N-A-Z-I, right there on the money. When they start talking about Nazis, and they're putting forth a Nazi agenda. Well, Nazi doesn't even mean what they said it meant. It's the first part of national, of the word national. And that's what that whole Nazi thing is about. But see, for the Moors, we got another word here that's similar to this word conquer. So this is the word that they were using right here. They said Nazi. But for the Moors, it's this. Nazi. That means you can't see it. That means you're inoculated, you're vaccinated. If you look up the word vaccination, the definition of the word vaccination is inoculate. Inoculate means to make it so that you can't see. Because we know our ocular vision, it has to do with the eyes. And so they're showing you here about that red writing and how the red writing really does govern. That tells you who the sovereigns are. Because they're saying they have the exclusive right to coin money and to issue banknotes. And when they say banknotes, they put that in all lowercase letters. And this is an older one that I found with this red ink up here. The serial number was in a red ink. They registered it. That's a registration number of this Swiss National Bank note. And this one is from 1924, February of 1924. It was one of the first ones that they issued. And they used, this looks like brown ink, but it's really copper. It's red until it dries. And when it dries, it turns brown. And this is ours when we were writing back in the day using copper in our ink. And when you talk about the Third Reich and the Fourth Reich, this is a Reichsbank note. So when you're talking about Nazis and the Third Reich and the Fourth Reich, that's not the big boogeyman that they talked about. That's not what that is. Islam, Empress.
Reich, German noun, kingdom, realm, state.
Yes.
Old High German, Reiki, realm, rule.
Yes, it is the Moors.
Yep.
This is a realm note, a kingdom note. So now, let's move forward a little further here, because this is the part that's going to tie all of this together for us, Moors, because, again, the Swiss National Bank was holding the gold. It stayed there on paper while we woke up. And so what were they doing? The Swiss National, where was everybody getting their U.S. dollars from? Now, when we talk about U.S. dollars in this sense, we are not talking about Federal Reserve debt notes. We're not. We're talking about U.S. dollars from American dollars, from us. How was the rest of the world getting these dollars? How is it, let's say, for example, with Dolarium, if we were going to distribute Dolarium all over the earth, how would we do that? We would put Dolarium in the slot of U.S. dollars and say, okay, for this landmass, Dolarium is the U.S. dollar. A U.S. dollar is a unit of measure. It's not paper per se. It's a unit of measure, and whatever you put in there will be whatever you call it. In the case of the past era, it was Federal Reserve debt notes that they put in that U.S. dollar slot. So now what are we putting in the U.S. dollar slot? Either whatever we coin and put there, Dolarium, our credit, fiduciary money. Those are the three that we've put on a public record as the U.S. dollar thus far. So how does the rest of the world get what we have? This is what they've all been doing the whole time, and this is why Credit Suisse and the Swiss National Bank are so important. What they've been doing is anyone who wanted to get U.S. dollars and then put their national currency in that spot, for example, the quote-unquote euro. The reason the European Union is a special purpose vehicle, is separate, is because they would go and auction, go to the Swiss National Bank whenever the Swiss National Bank would hold an auction of U.S. dollars, and they would bid on those U.S. dollars. And then they would take them back to the European Union, quote unquote, and they would say, okay, we have this many U.S. dollars, so let's put euros in that space and peg them to the U.S. dollar and then give them out to the people. And that's why when the people would come here from Europe, they would bring their euros and go to an exchange place and exchange them for Federal Reserve debt notes. Well, wait a minute. What happened to the U.S. dollar? The fakes put Federal Reserve debt notes in the slot of U.S. dollars because the Moors did not produce some banknotes that say, okay, no, it's not Federal Reserve debt notes, it's Federal Reserve notes or U.S. dollars. That goes in that slot where money is supposed to go. And that's why the creation of the Dolarium and the fiduciary money and the use of our credit is so important. We're saying we've got all kinds of stuff to use as a U.S. dollar. And everyone else can peg their money to that. 1-to-1. So this Swiss National Bank has been holding monthly U.S. dollar auctions since when? So let's just take a quick look at how many went to the Swiss National Bank, because see, there's some really important markers in the information that we're about to see. One of the really important markers that we want to look at is what happened when the Moors woke up and started making proclamations on the public record, like we're leaning the United States Corporation Company and declaring the gold standard and doing things like that. How do we know that they even heard any of the things we're saying, and how do we know the rest of the world responded to that stuff? You can look at these results here, and I'll put the link in the chat. So let's take a look at these results of what's been going on in the U.S. auctions for money, for U.S. dollars. All of these other nations, and this is really small, so you're going to have to look at the. So I'll point really quickly to what was being given. So right here, allotment type, Dutch and American. This part right here where it says Dutch and American is the difference between a euro and a U.S. dollar or an American money. Okay. They were they connected what they were doing to what we were doing. That's what the European Union was doing. Okay. In these auctions. So now, what happened with these auctions and what's been going on since the Moors have been doing things? These auctions they're mentioned by the quarter, let's see, every quarter, rather, because I did say every month, 16, 17, 18, 19. They have these auctions every so often. I'm going to use that term. 1, 2, 3, 4, every week. They have them every week. And so this morning, Empress Cynthia, she didn't know that I had been looking at this for weeks now. I've been looking at this. But Empress Cynthia, I thank her so much because she is so we're all on one page, all of us. Empress Cynthia sent something yesterday or this morning saying that that one of the hybrids has said that no U.S. dollars were purchased, I guess this past week or whatever. Well, this is what they're talking about. They're just looking at this right here and seeing if any nations purchased the U.S. dollar. Again, what they do is they take that unit of measure that we issue and they say, okay, let's put Swiss francs in here. So Switzerland will put Swiss francs there and make it even with the U.S. dollars that they purchased. But they can't issue francs if they don't have U.S. dollars to go with it. And this is what we mean by the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency for the world. If they don't come to this auction and buy anything, then they can't issue any more money of their own currencies. They can't if they don't have a matching U.S. dollar slot there to put it in. That's what makes us so powerful, okay, is that we all agreed that everyone would use whatever money we coin. In this case, a Federal Reserve note is different from a Federal Reserve debt note, where the citizens and subjects are concerned. And then gold-backed dollarium is different from a Swiss franc or a German Deutschmark or a lira or a dirham or any of those other Zimbabwe Zim. Okay, all of those currencies that I mentioned go in the slot where the U.S. dollar that they come and get, they have to have them, and that's where the currency amounts come from. And when you hear of inflation, that means that the federal, now especially here, and that's why inflation here is so weird. The whole earth is looking at this inflationary piece going, why in the world are they having inflationary problems? It's because the Moors. need to put that thing in order. It's because the Federal Reserve actors, if they don't have the U.S. dollars on the books to slide a Federal Reserve debt note in there, then they can't issue no more Federal Reserve debt notes. They can't. But then if there's more of us who have nationalized, that means they can issue as many Federal Reserve notes as they can print. All of that QE, quantitative easing and quantitative tightening, all that is measuring how many more have nationalized. Have they recapitulated, or are they still being themselves? Then that determines the number of U.S. dollars that can go on these books. And then that means that the rest of the world can have notes printed. But as you can see, there was a while here. Look at all these zeros over here. And these zeros correlate with dates, 2022. Okay, these zeros over here. That means nobody was buying buying U.S. dollars at the auction during these dates. So I said, well, let me look back and see what was happening when we leaned them back in 2018, and how that affected, what did that look like? Okay, so everyone started paring down in anticipation. They really didn't even need to come to an auction before, because there were not many of us that were nationalized like we are now. So I looked back and I said, okay, let me just take a look here. This is 2017, 2018. Nobody buying anything. No auction trading. None of that. Nobody coming to get money. But then here in 2020, something happened. So I said, well, let me look back and see what was going on January, February, March of 2020. On March the 18th of 2020 is when the buying started picking up. March 2020, March 18th. Well, what were we doing at that time? I just love this. Islam, Empress.
Well, one of the things, it was our New Year around that in March. Yes. And then 2020, it was my open sight, perfect vision as far as who I was, who I am.
It was all of ours. Everyone woke up in 2020 in terms of more numbers waking up. That was everyone.
And and that's when they instituted their COVID operation.
Yeah.
And so everything was quiet, everybody had to go and secrecy, or not secrecy, but essentially it was for the world, because nothing was on the front street anymore. They was, going and trying to figure out how to get things done still, though they already had their plans as far as what they had planned, but they didn't plan what we were planning and what we were doing. So they had to figure that out then too.
Well, they needed to see something from us.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to see something from us, because they're our subjects. So, Morris, let me explain to you what happened. A week before this, maybe just a few days, probably it was actually about 2 weeks before this, but then we put it on the record 3 days before this. We started writing in red. And Delarium, yes, Empress Sabra, yes. We started writing in red around that same time. And when we started writing in red and issuing notes and documents in red, because remember what we showed you about even London and the actors that were doing business as the Queen. The actor was receiving things in red affidavits. They would bring the red box to her, to our subject. It would have our affidavits in it in red. I know that. We've shown you the red box, though, her opening her red box and it having an affidavit with seals at the top. We've shown you the photograph in previous video. So what we did was when they saw us start writing in red in all lowercase letters, then the rest of the earth said, okay, well, we can start showing where we getting everything from now. So everybody go, start buying U.S. dollars because the Moors are awake. The Moors are awake. They know who they are. And they're using their own capitalism. The writing in red told the Swiss bank that, okay, the Moors have it because that's what they were using on their money. We just showed that. So when the Moors started putting out all of these documents in red ink and all lowercase letters, then the rest of the earth said, well, shoot, we in business now. Y'all better get some U.S. dollars. And they started, and the auctions picked up. But then the auctions started going back down. Look at the buying. Look at the activity. This is all through 2020. That was a COVID thing because they also know that when that quote unquote COVID thing happens, that's a signal to the rest of the earth too that the Moors are waking up. Okay. Justice Sharif put something in the chat. He said, in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, that's the name of it, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, they said that the economy would be balanced by killing the republic, the real creditors. And for them, that might have seemed like the truth for them. Well, then if we revive the republic, then it's balancing it back for us, isn't it? And the real creditor speaking and writing in red, that's why those 40 documents in red ink in all lowercase letters on the public record is so important. Some don't feel like you need to put all of that out there. Some feel like you should just write in black ink, but you can look at the Swiss National Bank money. It's got gold in it and it's got red on the money. And here's the thing, when you see all of those zeros on here, on these documents here, on these auctions, that means that everybody started, either they had enough, which they never did, or they went back to the Swiss National Bank and started looking for some remedy there. Well, look at what's happening now, Morris. The volume has significantly picked up. All they're doing is sending signals. Let's see, last week on the 19th, or the week before last on the 19th, was the highest level they've had at the auctions in years, since before we woke up. Look at that. Look at those numbers. And Morris, you can go ahead and take a look at these numbers and study this document. Because again, when this is the connector or the joint between the gold, our gold-backed economy, and the fiat. This is where they come together. Okay, and whenever we make a move, it's reflected here in these auctions. Now, what does that mean for us? That means that it's just about time for us to start the auction, to start the auction. So then you say, well, if they're getting U.S. dollars, what are they bringing to the table? What do you have to do to attend the auction? Because, see, they'll be coming to our auction. All of the documentation is on the website in the link that I put in the chat, and I'll put that link under the video for those who want to do the study on the Swiss National Bank, because that's the Moors. Yes, Justice Maurice Lloyd L. put it in the chat. They bring gold and silver and resources to the auction, and they say, okay, we have this much gold. Can we get some U.S. dollars? So that then our economy will be backed by gold. And even in the sleeping dead economy or whatever, that the last era, let me put it that way. In that last era, they were bringing paper gold, which is not real gold. It's just paper. It's paper. It's not real gold. They would bring that to the U.S. actors. So when the Biblios Heliotext talks about how all of the nations were going to bring their gifts to, let me, in fact, where are my Bible scholars? The Bible scholars know that, how all of the nations of the earth will be blessed through us. They will bring their gifts and set them, and that's all this is. That's all this is. Bringing what they have, and then they'll be blessed to be able to do commerce and to grow and to do whatever it is that they need to do. All the people will have their public programs, so they'll have everything they need, housing, utilities, all of that. Now, I'm going to move on a little bit quicker because I want to get to one last, let me see, there were two other things. So we will be conducting and governing the auctions to get finance to the other nations as well in an organized manner. So this was just a way for the dollars to get out there in an organized manner. Okay? That's what this process is. This is where the gold and the notes, the bank notes meet. And the corporate actors who put Federal Reserve debt notes in the way were showing us how to do it. Yes, that's their service that they were providing, is showing us how to do it. But then when we stand and do what we do, the services go away from their part, and we put the programs in place. That's the republic. But we had to take control of that United States Corporation Company the way that we did, to let everyone know that, no, that's actually ours. So what did we do? We leaned the dead one, and then the subjects that were left are now called the United States Corporation Company, and they serve the Moors. It's still government services. But now what will happen is, as we go about demonstrating, our subjects will do exactly as commanded. They'll follow the Constitution and all of that because we put it in place. So we had to do those things in order for an account to be put in place for the United States, so that no person could be held liable in any court, and there would be full acquittance and discharge for things that are going on according to the Constitution and the laws now.
Islam, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you were speaking, I was thinking about how we take over the buildings that were the once banks, and how they would offer services. And because you keep saying we have programs, it would be to our benefit for us to restructure every service to a program, and that's how we would get the banking, resource, as far as the institutions that were at the debtor side, bring it to the creditor side.
That's what we were just saying to Justice Akil at the beginning of the call. Reconstruct the documents so that the banking is done that way, because everything is already in our control. We just have to reconstitute the forms, reconstruct the forms. That's it, and we're already doing it. That's a beautiful point, because we're already the banks are already being restructured and reconstituted by us whenever and that's why I would encourage all Moors to do the demonstration so we can get the banking thing moving. We've already put everything in place.
That part, dear God.
Done already. We already did it. All we have to do, and that's why we don't use their forms. Their forms go to a fraudulent system. We recreate them in our state, and then we just notify and send. Send the word. Islam. Yeah, it's done already. We're doing it even as we speak, Empress. We've already, everything is done. All we have to do is keep doing what we're doing. Keep reconstructing, and keep recreating what our ancestors created. Islam nobility.
I've been doing a little researching, and I've been seeing a lot of documents without signatures, and in our case it'd be autographs. But I was seeing I guess they waiting on signatures for goals or something of that nature.
When you say documents without signatures, what do you mean? Give an example, please.
It'd be stuff like stuff with
Is it from them?
Well, it's like something, yes.
Oh, so it's coming from them, from like court.
Well, it's posted on one of their sites and things of that nature, like
they want us to reconstruct them.
Indeed, that's what I'm trying to get clear. And then when when we reconstruct, do we send it to the subject that we had linked?
Yep. Yeah.
And that's where I was sitting at, because I done seen a lot of stuff.
Yes, they're waiting on you to reconstruct whatever you see. In other words, that's the offer.
That's the go.
That's the go. That's the go sign.
Indeed, because I've been noticing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Just watching you or observing you, and it ringing bells, and then I started researching, and it jumped out at me, boy.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've been noted, but this is the first time I stepped in and said something.
Yeah.
But I used to flow with that. But I already knew what to do. I just wanted to verify.
And you sign it. You autograph it.
Indeed.
Because it's your all caps that you, the fiduciary, will be speaking for to use that, to accept that offer.
Yeah, because, see, I go under the investors of a lot of that stuff and look at the SEC, and a lot of that stuff is have different formats you can download it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went in there and I said, boy, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yep. I love that ton of bricks. Keep hitting them. Yeah. Yeah. Our ancestors, they know what they're doing. I'm telling you, through us, through all of us, they know what they're doing. And then they know just when to send that ton of bricks to each one of us, and just, there it is.
Indeed, boy. It's in my lap. I dig it.
Yeah. It's all about the creation of our hand, our handiwork, our pens, our energy, all of that. It's all about that. So with that being said, the Republic is hereby restored. So, question, what's the best way to deal with policy enforcers in courts? Govern the city they work for is the answer. In other words, put them, if they're, yes, they are public servants, but they work for you, the people who are the government. But how do you show that you're the government? Reconstruct those forms and start accepting some things in the name of your government. What's the best way to deal with housing issues, rental issues, utility issues, and the need to have meeting places? Govern the city, state, and federal processes that issue those programs. What a public building, courtrooms are public. That's why the public be going in and out of there. We're supposed to be able to go and use those. We're supposed to be able to use public whatever. All government buildings are public. We're supposed to be able to use those. What's the best way and the quickest way to get to using them? Govern the process. Allocate the funds, appropriate the funds on paper, and then notify them. Who was pretending to govern the needs for the people in the past? Private services corporations pretending to do business as your government when you are the government. That's the republic. That means that the public is now governing, which is us. And really, it's the other way around. The government is the public. The government makes things public again. How do we continue to implement our governmental authority? By replacing private services corporations with public programs for the people that compensate the people who are assisting the people. So there's compensation in there for us in all different ways. It's all in the paperwork, and it all starts with proper identification of the parties. We are the people, we are the government, we are the law. All others are, and I'll have to take this out of here. They are corporate actors until we remove them and let's put lean and remove them, and stand and govern. That's what we have to do. And that's what we've been doing. That's the process that we're showing, these processes. The process of removal of private services corporations and replacing them with public programs governed and implemented by the people is called the republic. Step 1, proclaim your nationality on the public record. Step 2, terminate all corporate contracts with the dead actors. Step 3, place a Universal Commercial Code 1 lien on the nom de guerre war name and the Social Security number enacted by the dead state. Step 4, place a Universal Commercial Code 1 lien on that dead state. Step 5, proclaim that you are a sovereign that you have a sovereign trust proclamation on the public record. Our trust is in ourselves and each other, for we are the law and we are the government. Step 6, place your sovereign state fiduciary affidavit on the public record. Step 7, place a Universal Commercial Code 1 lien on all corporate cities, states, and corporations, and fake policy enforcers, fake courts. Do that. Lien all of that corporate United States, fake dead United States corporation company stuff. Step 8, place a corporate removal from office resignation affidavit on the public record proclaiming your fiduciary status as attorney in fact, as head for the resources previously claimed by said dead corporation, and then create the public program. Now, really quickly, and I'm rushing through this last part to slow it down. You can slow the video down when you get a moment. But let me show you the difference between public services, which was by the corporations, okay, and a public program. We've been seeing this part right here the whole time. And these definitions come from the codes. I believe these were the federal way codes, because I looked at so many codes. I looked at state codes, federal codes, and city codes and county codes. This definition, a public defender means an attorney providing indigent public defense services, which is not what we're doing. Public defense means legal representation of indigent defendants in criminal cases. Indigent can always mean either citizens or those who are indigent in terms of what they know about the law. In other words, those who think they're Negro, Black, Colored, and African American, you get them to declare their nationality, and then you can provide public defense programs for them. So what we've been seeing is this. There it is right there in the definitions. We don't do public defenders. We do public defense. As consuls. And it's always been in the codes. This code is not a new code. This is an old code. But we didn't know how to read, and we were inoculated. But now we can see. I once was blind, but now I see. So now let me just show you, because Empress Shasha, you asked the question about the utilities. So really quickly, let's go really quickly through creating the programs for utilities. Because as you all know, when I first, back in 2018, I believe it was either 2018 or 2019, I did a demonstration with waste management. And I didn't have all the pieces. But the ancestors honored my demonstration and made it so that my house wouldn't fill up with trash. So I did the demonstration, and I sent the emails, and this was before we knew about the court actions and the delirium and all of that. This was before all that we've done thus far. This was before we declared statehood and everything. And so I gave them back the commercial containers, and I didn't know it at the time, but I should have been stating that we've implemented public solid waste and recycling program, because it's not called trash, it's not called garbage. In the codes that lead all the way up to the Constitution, it's called solid waste and recycling. So I didn't know that at the time, and from that day to this day, I said, I'm not going to contract with them again. I'm going to figure out how to get service. But it wasn't service that I needed. It was programming. It was programming that I needed. But we had to do that. So now I know how to get the public program on the public record. I know how to do it now. But from that time to this, I haven't had service. So I've had to go every week and recycle and take things to the recycle bin. So it's been it was probably 2018 or 2019. So it's been about 3 years since I had trash service. But the ancestors knew that they knew I was going to do that, because they put a recycle bin at the end of the corner in this territory. And so now what do we have to do? We have to implement and we got to follow the money. And we're not following the money. The money has to follow us. Put everything on the public record in terms of what we showed you at the beginning of this call. And then I followed the appropriations from the Constitution all the way to Federal Way Revised Code. And I saw this one revised code here that I want to show you, because this code is about utilities, it's about everything and how to implement it. And this has not been done here yet, by the way. Well, it has been done, but the process is not complete. So I looked at Federal Way Revised Code, okay? And here it says creation of department. And when it says department, it has department in all lowercase letters, so I can call my department a ministry, because this word in all lowercase letters is a word that says you can use any word that you want to use, and you can call your department whatever you want to call it. So here it says there is hereby, and they even get the servants, the subjects even give us the language to use. There is hereby created a city department known as the Public Works Department. Public Works shall, it doesn't say public services, it says public works. Faith without works is dead. Faith is a financial term. You know, full faith and credit in the Constitution and in the laws and in ourselves. And our faith is in ourselves because of this. Full faith and then the public works go together to get what we need. There is hereby created a city department, and that's city department in all lowercase letters, known as the Public Works Department. Public Works shall participate in regional transportation committees, there's your public transportation where you don't have to pay to get on the bus, process development permits and inspect construction. That's for the building down the street. It has to be public. Administer traffic planning, traffic engineering, and traffic control devices. Therefore, Moors, when you see those traffic cameras and things, make it public, and that way it won't be taxing the people. It's for safety purposes. It says here, administer the commute trip reduction program. And that's where, for those who know anything about high-speed rail, that's where all of that stuff comes in at too. And the you know, all types of, you know, carpooling and things like that. That's where all of that comes in at. And there are other things that come under commute trip reduction program. Administer the transportation improvement plan. That's where you put your map on the public record and name the streets and do all that needs to be done where the land map is concerned. And I'm going to show you a map really quickly too. And then maintain the local street systems and administer related contracts. Now, when we do that, that means that we're on the land. We're not at any corporation. Manage the neighborhood traffic safety program. We're reading right here. Oversee all capital transportation. That's the movement of capital. Capital is all caps names and anything associated with it. That means we control that. We've already done that with the fiduciary document. And surface water management projects. That's important. We'll talk about all of this in detail over the next few days and weeks. Now, this part right here, administer all franchises. This is where the services comes in at, the restaurants and all of that, but utilities as well. Administer all franchises for utilities in rights of way and solid waste and recycling. This is the part that I was looking for when I came to this. And then I looked up the term rights of way. A right of way, a right, it's a right, not a privilege of way. It's a right. Well, who has the rights of way? Who is the right way? We are the way, the truth, and the light. No man comes to the Father but through us. No man comes to the Mother but through us. So when you say, and that's some bibliotheliotech quotes there, When we say right of way, when something is called a right of way, that means that the government has first use of it. That means the government gets to govern it. These streets that we're on, we govern those. That means our property is on the land. It's not at anybody's corporation. That way, policy enforcers can't come knocking on the door whenever they feel like it, looking for dead citizens, Moors. When we create the republic that we're creating, using the law. This is and then rights of way where solid waste and recycling and roads and transportation and natural waterways and things like that is concerned, and even grants and things. All of that starts with the Constitution, where it says general welfare for the United States. This is how you get it all the way from the district for Columbia all the way to the people. Administer all franchises for utilities and rights of way and solid waste and recycling. Administer the recycling program. Maintain, just one moment, maintain the city's natural, because this part is really good here. Maintain the city's natural and man-made surface water systems. Apply for various grants. There's the money. Monitor and enforce compliance of ESA, NPDES. Staff the Land Use Transportation Council Committee. This is where we're governing. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The staff is the Moors. So we staff that, okay? Or we can have citizens and subjects do that. Staff these transportation and land use council committees. That is what we saw when I showed you about the building down the street and that process of claiming it. Share with community development services and administer the surface water management program and fee schedule. Surface water management and fee schedule, this is all about the water that comes in, the fire hydrants down the way that produce that natural spring artesian water. If we want an artesian well at the end of our block, we can have one. But we got to be governing. Islam, Empress, I yield.
Oh, it was Islam. And so franchise, I looked that up, right, because it's before, where is it?
Franc, it's franc, which is a French word. It's money, it's French money.
Oh, but yes, it says, okay, I'll just read it. A noun, an authorization granted by a government or company to an individual or group, enabling them to carry out specified commercial activities. Example, providing a broadcasting service or acting as an agent for a company's products. And so where is it on this page here where it spoke about franchise?
So here where it says administer all franchise.
Yes, that's what administer all governmental companies. And it says for utilities, right? Yeah. And we used that word previously in another group congressional meeting. And then in rights.
Yes.
Right. And then so that means right is also referring to land.
Yes.
Land of and solid waste and recycling. And so this whole thing right here can be interpreted for different ways depending on how your perspective is.
Yeah.
But it all means our benefit and our use.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then also here, more where it says maintain the city's natural and man-made surface water systems. If the people in Flint at Flint Corporation, Michigan, had known about this and had been governing, they could have just gone down to the end of the block and popped open and after doing the documentation, of course, after making that action follow the money, they could have had a few of the fire hydrants removed, and spring water would have been coming up from there, and they could have had all the fresh water they wanted instead of having to talk about depending on services, because services are bought and sold. So this is another reason, administer all franchises for utilities in rights of way and solid waste. This means that we can, as the people and as the public, hire a company to do some services, but that doesn't mean that the company becomes the government. That means they do as we command, and that's what the republic is all about.
Islam,
Empress.
This has to be rewritten for the purpose that it says, and man-made surface water systems, right? And so surface, I remember doing some research previous about how far down the corporate fiction was allowed to go as far as getting natural resources, and they could only reach but so far, and so it was considered surface, and because that's what they were told, that they couldn't go any further. So, and I see that it says it twice so far, this sentence here and then the one down, it says, and administer the surface water management program. Oh, it says at least 3 times. Okay, I see it again. City oversee all capital, transportation, and surface water management. So they clearly are stating that they, at the time, were only allowed to go surface, right, concerning resources, especially water, because when you go further down deep, I guess, you would catch a different type of water, because there's many types of water.
Yes. So the municipal water system was actually supposed to be in case of emergency. Okay, it was not supposed to be where we only get our water from there. We got our water from nature. And then if something happened where there was an oil spill in nature or whatever, then we would use the municipal water until nature cleared things out, or we assisted nature in clearing things out. So, we have our choice. We can use either or, And, of course, we prefer artesian well water. That's what we drink here, because there's wells out here that run, rain or shine, they've been running for decades and decades. And they say decades, but that's just since they claimed it. Those things have been running the whole time, since time immemorial. That's what a fire hydrant is. A fire hydrant is beneath the surface water, and that's why it runs so freely. It's unmetered. That's a natural water system. And then the pipes and things that run to the domiciles are run by the city, quote unquote. That's why they called it city water. But even city water is supposed to be public, unless we hired someone to pretend to be the city. So, Islam, Empress.
I'm just, you talk about the fire hydrants being wells, or...
yes, they are. Yes, well.
It's very interesting, because here, where I am, one of the things that happens is there's when the fire brigade might come or something, and it's always said that the hydrants never have water in them. And so I'm listening to this because it makes absolute sense what you're saying, and wondering, then these hydrants are either fake or they're lying. Because it just doesn't make sense, because periodically there'll be fires, and the joke is, we're right by the sea. The fire brigade will come. There's no water in the fire hydrant.
That means they didn't finish their demonstration. They didn't finish the paperwork. It's the same thing that the Moors have been experiencing, like when I did my waste management demonstration. It was right, but I didn't finish it. I needed more keys.
But
they didn't finish it.
These are foreign hybrids who
I know
think this is their kingdom.
It's not. All they did was just put some paper there, and they did very little work there if they can't even get water out of a fire hydrant.
Well,
that means that they didn't really finish they didn't do as much as the ones here did to pretend to take things.
Right.
Empress, something you said in one of our previous calls about how they were going around handing out, saying land this and land that. That just means that whoever the subjects were over there, they didn't finish the work that they were supposed to do, and they're trying to hurry and at least prepare the demonstrations.
Because what they were doing during the pandemic, all of a sudden, the National Land Agency, and we know they're not national because that's definitely not, but they were going around and literally knocking on people's doors and saying, we will help you get your registered title. You don't have to pay, we'll loan, you'll have time when normally that's not the process. And but yet, try calling the National Land Agency and getting anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally, and I know this because it's this is connected also to why my consort is no longer here, that the attempts to literally just take over everything with their fraudulent paper.
It's just paper, and that's why ours is so powerful. Our affidavits are so powerful, and then we can turn right around and rebut with corporate paper too.
Right.
Yeah. We're something special. We got this.
Yes, we have.
We got this because we can turn around and use waterworks paper and say, put the waterworks in place. And then everybody's water bills and electric bills and all of that goes away when it becomes a public work.
And that's another issue down here in this particular area, which, as I had also mentioned, they have a map now that they've created for this area, which was never called the name they're calling it, and on their map, I mean, that's not the name of the land at all. But
Empress, let me show you what they're doing. Let me show you what they're doing, because when you say map, I got my if you could just see the energy coming off my head. Go ahead, Empress. I'm listening.
No, I want to hear what you're going to say, but I was just going to say that, I mean, some areas, they'll not have water for months. And then certain parts, like Millionaires Row, which the fraudulent corporate dead thing that calls itself king, he'll always have. You don't have that. And then one of the things that they've also bringing in after during at the tail end of this pandemic is all of a sudden now certain of them now own water companies. So there's certain areas that don't get water, so you're then forced to buy water, and many of the companies now, and the water comes from them again. I mean, I think that the layers, I don't know if it's a little more rogue here, because the more I'm learning here and the more I'm participating, the more it's like it's so clear the fiction.
Empress, they're just preparing demonstrations. That's all they're doing, because they know they don't own anything. They know you're awake. They know the government is there. They know the people are waking up.
Yeah.
And so all they're doing is saying, well, what other demonstrations will she have to do? We need to present her with an example so that she can reconstruct it.
So.
Yeah.
Now, please go back to your head exploding and fill out that.
Yep. I didn't know whether I was going to get to this part today or not, but I'm glad we're getting here. So, Empress and Moors, when you see them doing things like that, especially, Empress, with them passing out things that have to do with land, they know that you know about allodial title. So all you have to do is reconstruct, and then you're going to have to minister that to the people around you who receive those documents.
Okay.
So here these servants here, they had to make sure that everything was done already by the time we woke up, and they knew that when we woke up, it was going to be a earth-wide thing. So it's two ways you can look at it. You can say that they colonized really quickly.
Yeah.
Or you can say that they presented the examples really quickly. I prefer the latter.
The other. Now, in the midst of that, and I'm really not in the midst of that. There's layers, because the reason my consort was murdered goes back to one who obviously has some connections with some of the fraudulent corporate agencies and the services, but there's still that piece where it literally goes. Do you get what I'm saying? It's beyond just the bigger issue, because there's a particular creature that wants and thinks it can still get, even as the service companies know and are demonstrating for the people. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that really is a fact. I'm not.
That's a matter of reconstruction, Empress. It just needs everything. It needs to go back to the Republic for the resources that those subjects were using, pretending to be corporations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, it has no space, as you stated, and we all state here. We are in control. It is ours, and it doesn't really matter what they think, what they do. Like I said, I'm still standing.
And they will do as commanded when you remove that corporate covering off of them.
Well,
the dead corporate covering off of them.
And I've done many. There's probably more in there, but those ones in particular, the utilities that we're talking about, I have done the liens, and I've done the court action to remove the corporate covering.
So now you need to implement a public program, and find the code for that public program, and you could almost Google it, and it will come up under Public Works.
I'm going to do that.
And then this is the part that I wanted to show you more, is that just had my head exploding earlier, Empress. You said something about maps.
Yes.
So look at our map here for Federal Way and vicinity.
Mediterranean Sea.
Yes, that's the Pacific Ocean. Pacific means peaceful.
Peaceful, yes.
And then if you look at our map, it is not the city of Federal Way, but Federal Way map.
Yeah.
And here's the Moorish National Republic federal government offices with Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey Technology Center. This is the map, and now Federal Way is actually in the shape of a pyramid. Originally, it's in the shape of a pyramid. But the pyramid is on it. It was on its side, and the interstate is the bottom of the pyramid, which is this purple line right here. It's in the shape of a pyramid, and it points toward Canaan land. This pyramid, this map. I'll show you how I did this map also. This map has the different jurisdictions of Federal Way. The red jurisdiction is Federal Way, and it's what's at the bottom of all of our documents and things. It's the map. It's the Universal Natural Area Code. It's in ancient English, etc. It's in our national language. That's the first jurisdiction. That's the main jurisdiction of Federal Way. But then there's this green one, and we have not talked about. I mentioned green ink before. Green ink is peace and friendship, really. So, Empress Shasha, if I wanted to send you a letter just asking how you're doing and saying, come and have dinner with us, I would send it in green ink. That's family and friends. That's what green ink is. And I got that information from someone here, a Moor at our territory who grew up Moorish, and her aunts and her grandmother and them always knew who they were. And she said that what happened is, and she was on some of our calls. She may be on this one. I'm not sure. But what she said was that they went into corporate America and never came out because they were treated so well in corporate America. Okay. And so she's the one who said that green is friendship, and it made sense to me because of the color of the star that's on our flag. Then the third jurisdiction is the blue jurisdiction, which is a commercial admiralty jurisdiction. And then we have the black jurisdiction, which is corporate. Okay, but it's our corporate jurisdiction, not anyone else's, because we created this. Right. Now, and this is what I was so excited to show you all is that this map was already done. All I had to do was change the labeling on it and put in what I wanted it to be. It was already done. And then let me show you the second map so I can show you. They have a zoning map. So, and these maps will go to Federal Way, the subjects. It will go to the subjects this coming week. But we're putting them on the public record now. And we will be updating them as time goes by. This Mediterranean Sea is where I get the sea salt from. So this is the map that is accepted and approved by us, by the real Federal Way. And then what we did where the consulate and the government is concerned in red, we put that in red here right over our domicile here. So this whole area, we have marked it for government and consular domiciles. And then what we did was we put this ordinance 22938. You may recognize this ordinance because it has to do with the building down the street. And so we saw here on this zoning map that they, over here on the right, on the left rather, they had zoned. They have Federal Way zone. Now again, all they did was put this map on the public record with their labels on it, and they said, do you accept this? And I'm saying, no, I don't accept it the way it is. I'm going to recreate it. So I just put my own everything on it. Okay? And I only had to change the things you see in blue in terms of the lettering. The map itself still looks the same. But I put my own words and things. This was a PDF. And then at the top of the page here, I just used these things to edit the PDF. But I'll show you the document that they did. Federal Way map. Zoning map.
Now this place, I mean, it exists. You get what I'm saying? Your map is it is of a real place. That's the name of it. That's the land and everything else.
Yes, yes.
The map here is renaming actually the original place, if that makes sense.
People might believe you, Pauline.
So when you
the anorexic voodoo princess, anorexic voodoo princess, Shasha, the anorexic voodoo princess.
Just a moment. Let's see. Okay, so Ember Shasha, when you do your map, you put it the way you want it. See, again, the maps that you see of Jamaica, they're just offerings by subjects who don't even have the competence to put it in sovereign terms and in its original form. If they were to spell Jamaica right, that would be out of alignment for them.
Right. Yes, yes.
You must do it because you're the government. I had to take city of, because this is the subject's offering.
Oh, yeah.
It says city of, Federal Way, and then they have these maps. They have a history of annexations. They have the comprehensive plan map. These are all offerings that they're offering to us.
And I didn't realize you took out city of. You corrected
yes.
it. You replicated
yes.
it. Correct. Yes, yes.
Then I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna send the word forth to let them know. No, you're not at the corporation. We're on the land. Okay, we're on the land.
Yeah.
And so is that building.
Yeah.
So you all will be able to find maps, and again, Morris, don't feel like if you've not gotten to this point, don't feel like you're left behind or anything, because when the time is right, everything is going to be in place and it'll be right where what you want it to be. It will be. We were called to put this forth, and so that we can properly state where everything is. And then we went even further where maps are concerned, and did a couple of other maps. We did, let's see. Let me show you these other maps that we did really quickly. We did, let's see. Where's this other map that we did? Six Corporation Company, vicinity. And I may have, what we did was we did a map of Earth, and we called it Gaia and Earth, and then we did a map of the United States and the Western Hemisphere, and we labeled it correctly as well. And I'll have to find those maps. They're here somewhere. But if I don't find them now, we'll get to them at another time. Let me see. I go through so many. Proposed zoning map. Yeah, I'll present those at a different time because I don't see them here. But this is what I did, and this is what I will be sending to the subjects at Federal Way, so that this plan, this comprehensive plan for the city, goes on the public record. Well, what do we have to do now is we have to provide the public things. But this is where the subjects come in at, Morris. I don't have to worry about police. I don't have to worry about any of that because the franchises are already here. I just have to speak them into existence. But until then, the subjects will do it. Some of those subjects are Moors. Most here are not. They are subjects. They're They come from Europe. Okay, and Europeans have a place here too. They can work here, and they are subjects here, and you know that's what they call them over there at England, at UK territory. They say oh, we're subjects of the Queen. That's true all over the earth, and the Queen energy is the Moors. Every Moorish matriarch is the queen, as well as the empresses of all, because empresses outrank queens in terms of the hierarchy. A queen is actually a subject who is beholden to the empress. That means she gets her orders from the empresses. So this is the part that I couldn't wait to share with you, is about the maps, because I'm excited about these maps, because we get to state where we are. In 2019, I put some things on social media about a particular building here that, and this building is different from the building down the street. And I put some photos and did some things with regard to that building. I put a lien on it, and nobody's been in it since then. That's been years ago. That was 3 years ago that I put the lien on that building. No one is still in it. It's a beautiful building. It actually looks like a luxury boat. But if you go onto my social media on Facebook at Light Tajiri Bay, you can see that the photos of that building is still there. That building is what's marked on our map as Moorish National Republic federal government offices. Now, some may say, well, what about Olympia and where the Capitol building is? Those are offices also. Those are our offices. There's the Temple of Justice there and all of that. While we're here at Federal Way doing the work that we're doing here, we wanted to go ahead and begin enlarging and claiming our territory right around where we are. And we already know that as we continue to claim the things that are right here, we have to do a map for Olympia, stating that those buildings there are our government offices, where the governor and the state secretary are. That's us. And so when we get around to it, we'll do an Olympia map, and we'll do a Seattle map, because that's the commercial capital for us. But one last thing I'll say before we move to adjournment, a couple of things I'll say. There's a place here called Gasworks Park. Gasworks Park. And I always wonder, why did they call it that? Why is it called Gasworks Park? And it has these it's an ancient industrial building that's submerged underwater, half of it, and there's a small part of it that's above water. And it has actual pyramids right there in the park that they have not. The pyramids are right there, and at the top of the pyramid, there's a sun calendar, because we talk about the sun calendar and the moon calendar. I posted some photos of it on my social media page at Light Tajiri Bay on Facebook back when I went to Gasworks Park. It is clear and obvious to me that place is one of the places that public works comes from. That's why it's called Gasworks Park, because that's where public gas comes from. The buildings are still there. They haven't moved them. They're still there. Everything is still there. All we have to do is go and turn the knob. Same thing with all the rest of the utilities that are public utilities. So are there any other questions or comments regarding any of the things that we've spoken about today?
Islam Empress.
Islam.
This is Navi. I wanted to say something about Gasworks Park. When we were younger, they used to say it was haunted, but I believe that was the ancestors keeping them from being there.
You know, Empress, I'm so glad that you're on this call because I did not know that, but it does not surprise me at all.
We used to go anyway, and we used to sit on top of that sundial.
Really? I was up there, Empress, and you know what? You talking about a rapture and beam me up, Scotty. I could have been beamed up right from there because the energy is so powerful.
It is, very much so.
I was like, and this is the crazy part. I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but if I could have taken a photo of it, if I felt urged to take a photo of it, I would have. As I was up there on that sundial, Empress Nabi, every hybrid in the park turned their back to face the water all at one time as I stood on the sundial.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, whoa. But then the scripture came to me about how in Genesis and Exodus, in the early chapters of the Biblios Heliotext, how God would not let, I believe it was Moses see his face, but he said, I will pass by you and you can look at my back. Because see, you cannot look the master face in the eye.
Yeah. On the mountaintop.
I was like, what the heck just happened? Because everybody turned to the water and just, I was like, all at once too. I said, ooh, let me just go ahead and do some rituals while I'm up here while they turned away. I went and meditated and just started looking around and claiming some things and proclaiming some things in my spirit. I wasn't saying it out loud. I was just proclaiming it in my spirit. It was beautiful energy though, very beautiful energy.
It is.
And they had one banner of amity and commerce that was off out in the water area. And it wasn't even on the land. It was on a mast, a sailor's mast, and it was leaning at half, like at half staff. Yeah. I was like, don't tell me they don't know. Please don't tell me they don't know, because they know.
They were mourning.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. I've had some amazing experiences since waking up. It's just been very, very beautiful, very beautiful. And I know that you all have had those same amazing experiences that you thought, no, if I tell somebody, they are not going to believe me unless they know who they are and what all is going on here. But I said, I'm not going to say a thing about what just happened here. I'm not even going to say nothing about it until the time is right. But everybody turned their back and looked. I was like, oh. So with that being said, the one last thing I want to say, Moors, before we adjourn, please, I am requesting of the Moors, because we can ask each other. We don't ask subjects, we command subjects, but we ask each other. Please be mindful of your astrological balance. Please take care of you. Do an astrological reading on yourself. Go just the way I do mine is I just look at a horoscope and I adapt it to what I want it to be. Mind your cosmological health so that you are not so spiritually minded that you are no earthly good to your heirs, yourself, and others. There is a fine balance between those two. I'll give you an example. Some days I don't even want to do dishes because I'm like, I could be studying. Why would I even worry about that? I could be studying. But then the ancestor said, okay, you're going to have to do a little bit better because you're still here on earth. Like we're all bringing heaven to earth. We're making this what it should be. That's what this is. This is the process of us making earth transform into the heavenly land that we know it is. And so I have to get up and go and do the dishes and wash the car and take the trash and do those things when it's time to do them, even though a part of me is resistant just because I want to study. I want to just keep staying in my studies. And the ancestors say, take some time, balance it out, take some time, spend some time with your heiress, spend some time, doing family things. I'm just now getting to the point because they do want us to enjoy this journey. And so the reason I say look at the cosmological piece too is we must stay grounded and be the connector, the liaison, the benefactor, the heavenly priest, the magician and translator between the dimensions. We actually have to translate what's happening in the spirit realm into this realm so that those around us can see. They can see and they can wake up. And that's another reason why at one point we were doing ancient English on our videos, all ancient English. And it's just now that many more are starting to get why that's so important. But we had to switch back to common English with a mix of ancient English because we still do ancient English too. We had to switch back so that we could get the message across because we don't want to be so ourselves that the ones that need to hear it don't get it. They don't get it. It's, and so they're just now, as they're being introduced to their nationality, understanding that it was in the language that the foolery and the buffoonery happened. So we had to have our own go back to our own national language, which ancient English consists of English, Spanish, Latin. Think of any other language and you will find words of it in ancient English. Ancient English comes from our soul. Your ancient English is not always going to look like my ancient English. It won't be spelled like my ancient English. It's still ancient English because it came from your soul. It just does not look as much like common English does. But we had to consider those who are awake. Those who are asleep and don't know yet that you actually have a national language that you already know in your spirit. And then you let the dictionary and the root words do the rest. So we do need to be mindful. Always know when your house sign or your sign is in retrograde. When Mercury is in retrograde, know what effects that has on you. When Saturn and Jupiter and Mars are in different positions, and this is general, because it can be general, because I don't go so far into the study. I just go in there enough to see and get some affirmation of what I'm feeling, because sometimes if Mercury goes into retrograde, you'll be wondering, why am I short with everyone and I don't feel like doing this, that, and the third? Why? Why is that? Well, it's because the retrograde is having an effect on your energy, your sign, your consciousness, your thoughts, and the frequency and the vibration. But we must be mindful of our astrological and cosmological health, and then also know this, that just because you are one sign does not mean that you don't have the other qualities of the other signs. You can actually, and this is how beautiful this is, after a while, you won't really be able to look at someone and guess their sign, because many of us can just about give 2 or 3 signs and we'll be right about somebody when we see them. We'll be like, oh yeah, that's either a Leo or a Sagittarius, or you're either a Gemini or a Scorpio, or Gemini or Virgo. because they're so closely related in terms of the way that they respond. But after, as we continue to rise, it's going to get harder and harder to tell the difference, because we will have encompassed and exhibited all of the signs within us as applicable, as necessary, as, so whatever the situation is, we can adjust immediately and be the remedy for that situation based on our sign and based on our ability to absorb all of the other qualities, the beautiful qualities in all the other signs. So with that being said, let's look very carefully at all that is being placed in front of us. And we're at the acceptance phase now, Moors. We're just learning to accept all that is available to us from our own sovereign state. Okay? And with that being said,
like that Range Rover, going to get that Range Rover, Pauline.
Glad and grand
Range Rover, honey. Get
wait
that Range Rover, honey.
Let me
Where's your Range Rover, sweetheart?
Here.
Where's that Range Rover, sweetheart? You going to pick it up? Going to pick it up on this week? Where's that Range Rover?
Just a moment.
We're all just waiting for you. All us people are waiting for you, Pauline. Waiting for you to go pick up that Range Rover.
Just a moment more.
Go pick it up, honey. Thought you were going to pick it up. We're waiting.
Hold on.
You keep telling everybody that we're waiting. Yeah, listening to a dog.
There you go. We know how to shut that noise up. So, and when we say shut up, we mean be quiet. Subject, court jester, be quiet. Because we're not coming outside of our nobility just because there's a court jester.
What's that, Pauline?
Stating some things. Okay, we said be quiet. So, with that being said, Morris, please take care of you so that when situations present themselves, that we know how to respond to them and not be brought outside of our nobility, okay, and revert back to black behavior. Even though someone may be acting, a court jester may be acting in their black status, you keep your nobility and your class and your style and your lawfulness about you. Islam. With that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Islam. Grand rising, Empress.